NIPP. Okay. It is the Nigeria Energy Forum e-sessions, the series of e-webinars, and you are very much welcome. The theme for this particular session is powering a sustainable industrial revolution. And of course, it's not the first in the series. Since the COVID-19 pandemic came around, we've learned new ways to do new things. There's a lot of new normal for every one of us. So I guess we're all very much at home with all of these. So with that, I want to say it's not the first time, it's not the second we've been on this for. We had 4 wonderful sessions last year, and this year this is the very first. And so with this, I want to welcome every one of us to the Nigeria Energy Forum e-sessions for this year 2021. A very special word of welcome to the chairman of the conference, Dr. Oluwole Daniel Adewi. Doctor, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you, Engineer Makinde, and big welcome to everyone who has joined us on today's session. Particularly a big welcome to all of our, distinguished speakers, the keynote speakers, the technical experts, and certainly I'm very much looking forward to an insightful session, sir.
Thank you very much, Daniel. We have our partners here, and we cannot but just recognize and appreciate everyone. We're going to still be mentioning quite a number of them, but of course, AllOn, always there with us, always there for us. We appreciate you. I give you thumbs up from here. I want to say very good day and welcome to this session. Of course, USAID is also there, doing very excellently well. USAID Power Africa, we appreciate you. Lileka Brothers, always there. Then we have the NDPHC, the Nigeria Delta Power Holding Company. We appreciate you. IEEE, technical partner, NIEEE, Nigeria Institution of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. We want to appreciate everyone and we want to welcome you. Today we're going to be having some very scintillating sessions. We have quite a number of wonderful guests, that are going to be giving us some insight on quite a number of what they have been doing, and together we want to rub minds together and get it better. So with that, I want to say a very good welcome, a very good day to every one of us. I want to believe we have in our midst presently the Honorable Minister of State for Power, Mr. J.D. Agba. I want to believe he's very much here with us. He was here, of course. We've tested mic, tested video, everything before. We don't know whether he's here. If not, he's going to be joining us any moment from now. The AllOn representative, Jade Sola, you're very much welcome. Nice to see you again. And every other person, we're going to be getting to meet one another even the more as we move on. So with this, looking at our time now, I think I want to hand over to Dr. Daniel for his welcome and opening remarks. Dr. Daniel, over to you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Makinde, and welcome to everyone. I think we'll be stepping through just a bit of some of the housekeeping requirements across this session. So many thanks to all those who have joined in. So due to the large audience on the call, we sort of, inviting participants to kindly put their microphones on mute. And then we're also going to be managing the questions and answers using Slido. That will be via www.slido.com. I think we'll project that in a bit. And then we would also want to confirm that the speaker slides and videos will be available just after the webinar. They will all be published online, just so we can check who is on the call and get participants familiar with how to use the interactive Q&A tool. Can we just invite everyone to sort of log into Slido there? We've got a quick icebreaker question there just to check where everyone is coming from today. If you could kindly let us know your industry type. So if you could log into Slido, that's slido.com, and just use the code NEF 2021 at NEF 2021, and just respond to that poll there. let's know if you could select your industry type, whether it's from government, policy, or civil service, if it's from research, development, and innovation, if it's from an energy utility, from an IPP, from the oil and gas industry, if it's from an advisory and consulting firm, or if it's others. Certainly we know we cannot cover everyone within the classification, but just to test really where the different stakeholders on today's call, the different sectors that they've all been drawn from. Just to mention, we'll leave that poll running and we will come back to discover the results in a bit, but kindly log into slido.com using the code NIPP 2021, and then we can pick up the results as the session continues. So I'll quickly just step through the welcome address across the next couple of I think minutes while the slides, the polls are running. So please kindly respond to that poll at slido.com, and let's have a view on the industry sector that the participants have come from. Over to sort of the presentations and the slides from today. I think from my own side, I think while we've got that polls running, we'll just come back to see the results after the presentation. So we'll come back to that slide in a bit. Just to say welcome to everyone again who has joined us. We're particularly grateful, to all of our speakers. We're grateful to all of the stakeholders who have joined us on today's session. With the theme Powering a Sustainable Industrial Revolution, just to highlight that across the current year, the main challenge for economies across the globe in 2021 is exploring options for recovering better from the COVID-19 pandemic and its socioeconomic challenges. And we note there that, across our preparations for today's session, we've received a very huge turnout there from subscribers who have shown interest in today's session. Just on that next slide, we've seen, I think, over 570 subscribers who've shown interest in today's session and who will certainly be receiving the insights from the session. And you can see all of their classification and groupings from where they've come from. The vast majority, obviously, from industry and from also, the sort of significant proportion as well, covering both the industry stakeholders, professionals, and policymakers across the sector. And many thanks this year to our key sponsors, our platinum sponsor, AllOn, and big thanks to USAID Power Africa, silver sponsor. Just on the next slide, highlighting that the sustainable industrial revolution built on modern energy solutions can help accelerate the recovery pace for global economies across this transition to the post-COVID-19 season. However, a just, equitable, and sustainable energy transition must ensure no one is left behind. And that is why the NIPP 2021 is focusing on key initiatives pertinent to mobilizing investments for driving climate development, mitigation, adaptation, and finance, hence driving a better recovery post-COVID-19. The NIPP 2021 is also very practical, although even though it's virtual, and it's featuring key workshops across the Pacesetters panel, which will be coming to just immediately after this session by AllOn. Power Sector Impact Workshop across our November session. As you may have seen, we've got 2 dates this year, today and the 30th of November, and that's driven by USAID Nigeria Power Sector Program, and also exploring solutions to agri-food energy solutions by NIPP and the GFSGP, and also our annual Africa Energy Ideas competition. So really, we challenge our stakeholders to contribute their strategic insights towards achieving sustainable industrialization and demonstrating new approaches for upskilling and reskilling key professionals across the transition to a net zero power system. So I just run through the next slide very quickly, just highlighting, that the NIPP is driven by young professionals in collaboration, professional engineering industries across Nigerian professional engineering institutions. And on the next slide, we step through an agenda at a glance, a bird's eye view of what you expect to see today and in the session in November. Just on that next slide, you can see today we've got three, high-powered sessions that will be featuring a plenary session on the COP26 United Nations Climate Change Conference, one on energy pace setters roundtable, one on the energy innovation winners and assessors panel, in the formal launch of the 6th Energy Innovation Contest. And the November sessions will also feature a range of very, very insightful sessions all highlighted there. Just on the next slide, bit of an infographic around the impact that the Energy Innovation Contest has had. And today you'll be hearing firsthand from our three most sort of recent winners of that competition, the first prize winners, to learn the impact that has had on their business and how they are upscaling their solutions at the global pace. And just on the final slide there, want to say big acknowledgements to all of our supporters, AllOn, USAID, Power Africa, the Leica Brothers, and the NIEEE as our national technical partner. And just to say thank you. And at this point, I'll hand over to Engineer Makinde, who will be sort of introducing the session chair for the first panel session. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniel, for that very short, concise, and insightful welcome address. Once again, we want to welcome everyone. And of course, just like we said, our interaction today is going to be more on Slido. So just in case, just go in there, slido.com. Just type it in your browser, slido.com, and then you use hashtag NIPP 2021 to connect. And then you can come in and together we can do this. So once again, everyone, you are welcome. So without much ado, I'm going to be going to the very first session. And is going to be session on energy pace setters, energy pace setters panel. For the next couple of minutes, we are going to be having some insightful, presentations from these wonderful people. And let me bring in the session chair, one of our, they are one of our biggest partners from AllOn. She's been here before. She's always been here with us, and we so much appreciate you. Jade Solarawa, you are very much welcome. I think I see the floor to you right away. Over to you, Jade Solar. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Please, can you confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Likewise, everyone.
Perfect. Good afternoon, Engineer Makinde. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Like you mentioned, AllOn has been a constant supporter of the NEF conference, and we're excited to also be a part of it again in 2021. So I'm very excited about my role as chair, moderator. I'll take all the titles. And when I went through the presentations by the members of my panel today, I thought it might be a good idea for me to wear my glasses so I can look very serious because, they put some serious work into their presentations. And I can see a number of them are wearing glasses. I'm like, Jade, you need to make yourself look very serious and very, very technical. So hence the glasses. I'm very excited to moderate this panel this afternoon. Thank you once again for the opportunity. And because we're our time management has to be on point, without further ado, I'm going to introduce the first person that is going to be making his presentation this afternoon. His name is Jadid Beta. I was very concerned about making sure I got the name correct. I actually thought it was from Asia, and I said to myself, I was expecting a Malaysian or someone from Singapore or somewhere. But he's Nigerian, and he is with Siemens Energy UK, and he's going to be making a presentation to us this afternoon on hydrogen gas to power. So Jadid, I'm going to concede the floor to you. You have about 7 to 8 minutes to make this work. And once you see me waving like a crazy person across the screen, then that means, it's time to start wrapping it up. But please, Jadid, over to you.
Thanks very much, Jade. Can you all hear me?
Loud and clear, I can.
Yeah, and thanks for the wonderful introduction. And hello to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to join this panel. I would also like to thank all our listeners today for taking an interest in this presentation about hydrogen combustion in gas turbines and its contribution toward achieving net zero carbon emissions. My name is Jadid Beta, and I work as a senior combustion engineer at Siemens Energy, currently based in Lincoln in the United Kingdom. Next slide, please. Within the short time frame allocated to me, I will talk about the role of hydrogen as a clean and sustainable energy vector, how hydrogen combustion in gas turbines will contribute to the energy transition. I will then summarize the main talking points, followed by a quick summary of my humble career as requested by the organizers. Next slide, please. To kick off, I will explain why hydrogen is integral to energy systems of the future. If you go to the next slide. Without a doubt, climate change is the main driver for decarbonization today. And decarbonization is now a prominent feature in many global energy policies. Since the Paris Agreement of 2015, many countries have set ambitious targets to achieve net zero carbon emissions by mid-century in order to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. At Siemens Energy, we have identified 3 levers to decarbonize energy systems. These can also be interpreted as short, medium, and long-term solutions to pave the way for the energy transition. The first is efficiency increase. This is all about technologies to produce the same amount of power with less fuel. These include technologies such as highly efficient combined cycle gas turbines, advanced heat recovery systems, high voltage DC transmission systems, amongst others. The second lever is fuel shift and hybridization. This is essentially the transition away from the high carbon fuels of today to the sustainable fuels of the future, as well as increasing the share of renewables in the energy mix. This includes moving away from coal and oil to natural gas and LPG, as well as deploying energy storage technologies. The final lever is deep decarbonization. This is where renewable technologies are at the core of the energy system, supported by energy storage technologies to balance the intermittence of renewables. This includes carbon capture and storage, electrolyzer technologies to produce green hydrogen, and gas turbines that can operate on 100% hydrogen to produce carbon-free power. And this is where hydrogen comes into play. Next slide, please. If you go to the next slide. Hydrogen can essentially solve 2 fundamental problems in the energy system. First of all, hydrogen can be used to time shift energy to balance the intermittence of renewables. For example, excess solar power produced during the day when energy demand is low can be used to time shifted to the evening when supply is low and demand is high. This can also be achieved over longer timescales, for example, across seasons. Now, this is one of the key advantages of hydrogen over other storage technologies like batteries. Hydrogen also promotes sector coupling by providing the link between renewable energy generation and end-use sectors in what is known as power to gas. In this scenario, the power sector effectively becomes the main provider of sustainable energy to all other sectors. For example, hydrogen produced from carbon-free sources can serve as feedstock to many industrial processes, such as refineries, as well as the agricultural sector for the production of fertilizers. It can also be used to eliminate CO2 emissions in certain sectors that are difficult to decarbonize using electrification alone. These include long-distance transportation and industries requiring high-temperature heat, such as the iron and steel industries. So the ability to solve these 2 problems propels hydrogen to becoming an integral part of a decarbonized future. If you go to the next slide, please. In this section, I'll explain how hydrogen combustion in gas turbines will contribute towards decarbonization. In an energy future dominated by renewables, flexible gas turbines burning hydrogen can be used to compensate for the intermittence of solar and wind energy. This slide illustrates the working principle. Carbon-free hydrogen can essentially be produced in 2 ways. The first method is through the electrolysis of water using renewable electricity. Hydrogen produced this way is widely known as green hydrogen. Clean hydrogen can also be produced from natural gas using steam methane reforming, but with carbon capture and storage. This is where the CO2 emissions produced during the process are captured and permanently sequestered in geological formations such as depleted oil and gas fields. And the hydrogen produced in this manner is known as blue hydrogen. The hydrogen produced can then be transported via pipelines and stored in many different ways. And as the cliche goes, when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow, the stored hydrogen can then be re-electrified by burning in a gas turbine to produce carbon-free power, since the combustion of pure hydrogen only produces water. Next slide, please. Here I wanted to talk about the technical challenges of burning hydrogen, but before Jade starts waving her hands, and in the interest of time, I'll proceed to the next slide, please, and I'll answer any technical questions related to this. So if you give me the next slide.
And on that note, you've got about 3 minutes more, so you're doing very well.
Sure. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah. So today, our gas turbines can cover a wide range of hydrogen capability depending upon the power range and combustion technology. In fact, some of our industrial gas turbines can already accommodate up to 60% hydrogen by volume, reducing CO2 emissions in the tens of thousands of tons per year. In 2019, Siemens Energy signed a commitment announced by EU Turbines to develop our entire gas turbine portfolio toward 100% hydrogen. We have since hit the first milestone of achieving 20% hydrogen by 2020 in majority of our fleet. The final objective of achieving 100% hydrogen by 2030 is well underway with several ongoing research and development programs. To this effect, we have a clear roadmap to achieve 100% hydrogen by 2023 in a full-scale engine demonstrator, which I'll talk about in the next couple of slides. Next slide, please. A case study of our efforts toward realizing 100% hydrogen capability in our gas turbines is what is known as the High Flex Power Project. Siemens Energy is leading a consortium of various industrial and academic partners in Europe to decarbonize the combined heat and power operations of a paper mill located in France. This is an EU-funded project to the tune of about 15 million euros and is the world's first industrial scale demonstrator of a power to gas to power process using an advanced gas turbine to produce CO2-free energy. Next slide, please. And this slide illustrates how it will work. The site will produce hydrogen in an electrolyzer using water and renewable electricity drawn from the grid. The hydrogen produced will then be compressed and stored. By 2023, the pilot of up to 100% hydrogen will be demonstrated, where CO2-free power will be produced from stored excess renewable energy. The project will result in CO2 reduction of up to 65,000 tons per year, while generating additional revenue for the customer. More importantly, the project will highlight the importance of hydrogen as a long-term energy storage solution and deliver a techno-economic and environmental assessment of the power to hydrogen to power pathway. Next slide, please. So to summarize, if you proceed to the next slide. To summarize, hydrogen has a crucial role to play as a clean, versatile, and sustainable energy carrier to help the world achieve net zero carbon emissions. Through sector coupling and power to gas, hydrogen is integral to the decarbonization of various carbon-intensive sectors, such as long-distance transportation and industrial sectors requiring high-temperature heat. Gas turbines enable the re-electrification of green hydrogen produced using renewable electricity from the grid. This enables long-term storage of renewable energy and helps to balance the intermittence of renewables with a high degree of flexibility. Finally, at Siemens Energy, we have a clear roadmap, which is well underway to burn 100% hydrogen in our gas turbines in support of the energy transition. In the next slide, I'll discuss my career in brief as requested by the organizers. I graduated with a degree in mechanical engineering from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria in 2011. And this is where my interest in pursuing a career in the energy industry started to develop. I proceeded to Cardiff University in the UK in 2011 on a general scholarship to do a master's degree in sustainable energy and environment. This is where I developed a balanced understanding between fossil fuels and renewable energy technologies. I joined Siemens Energy based in the UK as a graduate trainee a few months after leaving Cardiff. In this role, I underwent a range of technical and commercial placements around the business in order to develop a broad understanding of the wider business operations. Personally, I consider those 2 seminal years as the most important period of my career so far. I joined the combustion department in 2014, where I've been working to date. My primary responsibility is the development of low emissions and fuel flexible combustion systems for Siemens Energy's industrial fleet of gas turbines ranging from 5 megawatt to 15 megawatt. Since 2018, I've been pursuing a part-time doctorate degree at University College London, fully sponsored by Siemens Energy. My research, as you could probably guess, is focused on some of the challenges of burning hydrogen in gas turbines. My hope is for a more exciting career in the energy sector beyond 2023, when I would have completed my industrial PhD. With this, I conclude my presentation. I thank you for your attention and look forward to receiving your questions and feedback. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, David. That was fantastic. And it also reinforced to me the fact that I don't like science, I couldn't have passed science, and I went the way I should have gone in my career and in life. But well done. Thank you very much. I'm sure the questions will come, but just before I introduce the next speaker, just let everyone know that there's gonna be a question and answer session at the end of everyone's presentations. And then, so if you have any questions, like Daniel mentioned, I think you put them on Slido, and then we'll be addressing those questions. And just to also help us, you can put the name of the person that you're addressing your question to, so that we'll know the right person to direct it to. So moving along very quickly, thank you very much. The next speaker has got just 5 minutes. And I'm going to be introducing Sandra Dozier. She's the CEO of Sulphur Energy and AllOn investee. We're very excited, and she's going to be talking about upscaling affordable solar lighting solutions. Sandra has a very interesting career, and I'm very excited for everyone to hear about her path. So without further ado, Sandra, you've got the floor, please. 5 minutes. Thank you. Sandra, hi. Can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry, I just got unmuted. Hi, everyone.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me clearly?
Loud and clear. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I stand on existing protocol. My name is Sandra Dozier, and I'm the CEO of Sulphur, and I'm so pleased to speak to you all about Sulphur's journeys of scaling affordable solar solutions. Next slide, please. So right now in Nigeria, we have over 27 million households and 10 million SMEs that either have no access to electricity or have bad grid connections. And here lies a massive opportunity to transition this population to cleaner forms of energy. And so at Sulphur, the biggest challenge that we had was figuring out how to design the products and send it into homes and businesses, because a typical Nigerian customer is aspirational when it comes to energy use, but also price conscious. Sorry, previous slide, not this slide. Previous slide, please. Previous slide, please. So the typical Nigerian customer is aspirational when it comes to energy, and is also price conscious. But also there's poor visibility in Nigeria for solar home systems. Only 1 in 7 trade outlets stock solar. That number drops to 1 in 20 when you move from urban to rural settlements. And so because the Nigerian energy market is bottom heavy, Sulphur's strategy is to bring the underserved and unserved into and up the energy ladder. And so we've done that by designing a range of affordable solar home systems, from entry level to productive use, that excite our customers to aspire climbing up the energy ladder. And we do that across a different range of energy services: lighting, phone charging, cooling, refrigeration, air circulation, and the likes. And so this is a typical example of how a customer will transition up the energy ladder. And so we have here Miss Maria. and she learns about Safa solutions. She was very intrigued by what we're doing, and she wanted to buy an entry-level system for her home. And so we gave her this system on the desk right there. And this system comes with 3 lighting points. It can charge a phone, has inbuilt multimedia for music, works with Bluetooth, works with the radio, and also works with an MP3. And this also supports air circulation. A small DC fan can be plugged in here for cooling and can be charged by the grid or by solar. And so after about 6 months of using this product, she was very pleased because she came back to us asking for a solar system that could bring all the appliances in her chemist shop under solar. And so we gave her this productive use appliance over here. And this supported refrigeration, cooling, computing, and all those needs she needed in the chemist shop. And so with people like Maria, we're able to reach them through our vast network of distributors and agents. In fact, these guys over here are currently at Akwa Ibom State. And Akwa Ibom has a population of over 270,000 households that have poor connections to the grid. And over the last 6 months, we've been able to connect 1,300 plus homes and businesses. And we expect that these customers who have been connected with our entry-level systems within a year or two would migrate to higher capacity productive use solar home systems. Next slide, please. So right now at Safa, we have connected over 23,000 homes and businesses. And over the next 5 years, we will connect 300,000 homes and businesses. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And so to manage the 300,000 connections we'll be bringing on board over the next 5 years, we monitor this with a reliable, seamless, last mile distribution platform. It's called Up Here. And so we track sales, we track payments, we track our agent movements, we track where these products are being deployed. We also get impact data from all our customers, and we also troubleshoot and manage maintenance requests. Next slide, please. Next slide. No. Back, yes. So just stepping back now, I've spoken a bit about Safa, but looking at the industry at large and trying to see how we can amalgamate all the efforts of the players in the RE space, I have a few recommendations for us to fill the energy gap. And the first is on finance. I believe we must have a multidimensional shift in the way we invest in energy in Nigeria. And we must move from seeing energy as not just oil and gas, but to incorporate other renewable forms of energy. And also we need to create an ecosystem where indigenous energy entrepreneurs can grow organically. African energy problems must be solved by African companies. The next is on innovation. We want innovators who are willing to crack, go back please. We want innovators who are willing to crack energy problems with indigenous thinking. The solutions that we create must solve critical problems, especially for productive use. For example, in the agricultural value chain, for planting, processing, preservation, distribution. We also want to domesticate this research in our universities. The next is localization. We want to localize the solar value chain. We need to implement those RE policies like we see in Ghana, Kenya, Ethiopia. We want complete priority clearance at the ports to facilitate ease of doing business. We also want waivers for import tariffs on solar use components. And also we need to galvanize public-private partnerships to be able to increase access to power, especially when it comes to leadership. And we've seen this kind of partnerships with the AllOn and USAID, the World Bank and the Nigerian government. We need to ensure that we're reaching the furthest behind, and we're doing that by empowering also women and bridging the gender gap. Next slide, please. So finally, a bit about me. Is it done? Sorry?
No, but you can just go through this in a minute. Thank you.
Right. So a bit about me and how I got on this journey. So I schooled in England. I got my bachelor's degree, and my master's degree was in oil and gas management, in line with my aspirations to join the family conglomerates that is focused on oil and gas. And so after getting my degree, I was fortunate to start my career at the United Nations in New York. And when I joined the UN, it was at a very pivotal time when the SDG goals were being launched. And I got a front row seat to seeing the future of energy unfold before me. And I learned that the future of energy had to be clean, modern, affordable, efficient, reliable. And this was a paradigm shift from what I was used to, seeing energy as oil and gas. And so, but it wasn't just this, it was also the consciousness around energy. That energy had to leave no one behind, starting with the furthest behind first. And this spoke directly to my soul as a young person. I wanted to be the kind of person that could evoke this change in my home country, Nigeria. And so I rushed back home with so much passion, enthusiasm, high hopes, and I joined the family conglomerate. However, I was met with polarized reception to my fresh ideas on energy. But in all, I felt the inertia of an established organization that couldn't evolve as I wanted to. And I knew instinctively that to move as fast as I wanted to, I had to get out there and start my own business. And so I was very fortunate to find alpha personalities who keyed into my vision. And when I say alpha, I don't mean people who are domineering. I mean people who are change agents, young people who are change agents, who radiate these qualities: authenticity, liberalism, passion, have a heart of love and compassion, and also have the audacity to dream big when the odds are stacked against you. And together, united with this team, we are a people of power. And this is Salva. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Sandra. I almost want to, I mean, there's no way for me to touch I'm already in Nigeria, but I almost want to start complete of hearing you speak about it. It's so much passion. Thank you very much. And without further ado, we're going to move on to the next speaker. Our next speaker is Ibiene Okeleke. She's the MD of the Energy Training Center, and she's going to be talking to us about upskilling energy professionals. Ibiene, you've got 5 minutes to make this count. And I will, so when I do the hand and my hands are moving up and down, my head's moving, then, it's time to round up. So you've got 5 minutes, you've got the floor. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Jadi. Thank you, everyone. And of course, I would like to thank the organizers and sponsors of NEF. This is indeed a very good platform, and it's been very engaging for me. So let me quickly share my slides. So just like Jadi Sola had introduced me, so I'm the Managing Director of Energy Training Center. And then can I go to the next slide? So we do training along the entire energy industry value chain. And just like the last two speakers have talked about, there's a lot going on in transiting from the traditional fossil fuels to cleaner energy. And so that's where there's a lot of talk about energy transition. Next slide. So these are things that we take into bear as we do this training. So Energy Training Center started in late 2018, early 2019. And this pretty much started because I thought, sitting in my old role, that which was the Chief Human Resources Officer of Ikeja Electric and the power sector. And prior to that, I'd been in traditional oil and gas. And I thought there was a huge gap. And so when this company started, we were really more focused on the power and renewable energy space, because that was where this gap existed. In the traditional oil and gas, you find out that it's been privatized for a long time, and there are a lot of large international global players. And because Nigeria is traditionally a crude economy, there was a lot of focus in that sector. And the power sector was evolving, was privatized, and then a lot hadn't happened there. So I actually realized that there was a huge gap, and one key area was capacity building. And capacity building is an initiative for growth. You can't do anything, you can't do projects without capacity building. And so I was happy to take this topic, which is upskilling professionals in the energy industry. So I'm sharing a bit of our approach. We had a clear vision and we had a clear objective. And so in what we do, we usually try to understand the current industry realities. And like a lot of us know, prior to COVID 2020, a lot was happening. But post-COVID, technology and a lot of things were fast forwarded. Like what should have happened in 5 years happened in just 1 year by accident. And so for the whole of last year, there was a lot of distortion. And like a lot of you know, this had affected a lot of training budgets. However, projects were still going on in the sector. And of course, the renewable energy sector was picking up, and then the other sectors came to the reality that this was the future, especially for Nigeria. And that happened for the renewable energy sector in the year 2020. Before then, people were paying a lot of lip service and a lot wasn't going on there, but attention was drawn to that sector in 2020. So the first way, the approach in dealing with upskilling or capacity building is to actually understand what exactly is going on in the economy. And for Energy Training Center, we wanted to be players in the entire economy, and we had a good understanding of the energy gap. And I mean, you've been hearing everybody talking about bridging and closing that gap that exists in Nigeria and of course in sub-Saharan Africa. So taking that into context, we had to understand what the gaps were that existed. There was, and of course we all know about the Vision 3030 for 2030, where the three sectors, the main grid, off-grids, mini-grids, contribute 30% to meeting this gap. And so with those things in mind, these were things that drove us in ETC. So the first thing is understanding the gaps that exist, the projects that are going on, the impactful projects, understanding of the skills gaps that will be required in the short term and in the long term, and also collaborating with critical stakeholders. And so the first thing was for us to understand and identify these stakeholders. Let's go to the next slide. So for capacity building or upskilling to be critical in this place, we're able to identify the critical stakeholders, and we wanted to partner and collaborate or work with these people. So the first category is the government and the donor agencies. And like we all know and has been said, a lot of support comes from a lot of these foreign and government agencies. And so far, a lot of them have invested in upskilling and bridging this gap that exists and supporting the Nigerian industry to close this gap through upskilling. Then also you had associations that exist for all these sectors. And today ETC has MOUs and partnerships with them. So you have Renewable Energy Association, which represents the renewable energy sector. You have ANED, which represents the distribution sector. You have Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Now we realize that Manufacturers Association are critical in the energy space because that's where you have a lot of the industries and a lot of them need power, and they are the biggest off-takers for power in Nigeria. Then NGA, of course, is Nigerian Gas Association, and OCTAN, the Association of Oil and Gas. So these particular associations are people we partner with, because when you work with them, they actually will tell you where these gaps exist, and they would actually want technical partners to partner with them in closing these gaps, because they actually are there to support their member organizations. So these are the companies that we work with. Then academia, and for academia, you have both formal academia, like the universities and colleges, especially with their engineering departments or computer science departments. And we also have some institutions, the Industrial Training Fund, the Manpower Development Company, the Lagos Business School. You also have NAPTIN, a key player in this sector. Energy Institute is EI, Tata, who are actually technical foreign partners. And also the individual power companies also have their academies and this manufacturing company. So these are people that are critical in how we operate as energy training center. Then you also have the state governments. Now, why are the state governments critical? So capacity building is not just for people that are existing and working in these organizations. There are people that would potentially come in, because you're actually looking at employability skills. And if there are a lot of projects that are going on in this sector, you would keep needing your pipeline to be fed with the right individuals. So it's also important to work with the governments who have these youths, who have these people in their states that they want to bridge and give the right capacities and skills that will be required to meet future employment. Then we also, another approach we usually would use is, because you are dealing with a technical sector, certifications become very critical and important. So we work with certification bodies, because they are the ones that drive the standards for how you play in those organizations. Then also critical stakeholders are OEMs, because the original equipment manufacturers, because you find out for this industry, you have these people that produce this equipment, bring them into Nigeria, and the players work with this equipment. But what you find out is that when this equipment have problems, the operators then have a problem. How do you repair? How do you fix them? So it's important for institutions, learning organizations to actually partner with these OEMs to ensure that the procedures and practices in how to handle these equipments are done properly. Please, can I get the next slide, please? Let me go on
okay, just a minute more. And that's from extra time.
Yeah. So our levels of training, we train in three types of, there are three approaches we use in training. So just like I have talked a lot about, there are project-driven trainings where we typically like to play in. So if there are projects going on, ETC would actually like to be critical in that area because we actually believe that that's where the impact will be felt. Then you also have capacity building for organizations in those sectors. And you also have capacity building for people that want to support the sector, or you have the financiers, you have the other industries that support this energy sector. They actually need to understand the skills required. Then also I talked a lot about employability and empowerment skills. So you'll find out that in a lot of these parts of the country, you have agencies that are ready to fund people. So you have agencies today and some NGOs, and you also have some foundations that want to build skills for the future and for the youths. So they come to Energy Training Center and they fund and sponsor trainings for these people who can then feed into this sector. The next slide, please. Next slide.
I think we've literally, honestly, got just a few more seconds for us to wrap this session up.
So let me just quickly go to my recommendations. So let me just quickly skip this slide and go into recommendations. So that's the next slide. Yeah. So from what we've done so far, there are a few areas, and I'm listening to the last speaker, Sandra Dozier. There are a lot of areas that we see that the sector, the regulators will do a lot more in closing this gap. One area is the funding. You'll find out that a lot of companies that operate in these sectors are poorly funded. And yes, there are a lot of funding agencies supported, but this hasn't been really sort of put together and sort of directed in the right channels so that you can see the impact. So there's a lot of money going in, but you can't actually feel the impact. So funding has to be better structured. Then I think everybody needs to come together. We have a lot of these roundtables that we hold, but I don't know what comes out of it afterwards. And I don't know if a lot of these things are implemented. Also, policies need to be in place. There's something the power and renewable energy sector can replicate that happens in the oil and gas sectors. You have policies that are put in place where it's important for people to actually allocate a fixed amount of money for training and actually really do those trainings that they say they will do, not just put them in the budgets. Then a lot of standardizations and certifications have to be put in this same sector. For instance, you have installers, there are no standardizations, there are no certifications, there's nothing. People do a lot of work and a lot of them are informally trained, some don't even get training. And there's also a lot of upskilling and reskilling that should be done. Another point for sustainability is that training should actually be stakeholder-led and not just funded. So a lot of key players here should actually do these trainings, and there should be a lot more government and private partnerships for a lot of these project trainings. Where these trainings occur, a lot of these trainings should not just be given to certain institutions. I mean, it's important to know the training of organizations that exist and ensure that the people that have the right capability actually do a lot of these trainings. Now, my last slide, I'm actually trying to go.
I'm honestly going to have to stop you at this point, to be honest. And the reason is because I see a number of questions that we can speak to that would come back to you.
The last slide is actually my profile. I think we can actually.
Okay, so just a few seconds, please.
So I started my career just as a HR person, and I went into the oil and gas sector as the head of HR, and I went into the power sector, and I came in to do this role. And I have some degrees. I think we can stop at this point. I mean, it's always easy, and the questions would sort of, the questions that we get would have these answers. Thank you. I'm actually trying to rush so fast, so no point.
Thank you very much. Yes, time constraint is the reality.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
I totally understand.
Just for everyone's information, if you want to read more about the speakers and their experiences and qualifications, then you can find that on the NEF website. The speakers page has all of the details about them. So moving along very quickly, we have just 2 more presentations. One of our speakers could not make it. So please continue to submit your questions. I already see a good number of questions on Slido. The next speaker that we're going to introduce is Joel Igbat. He's with Vestas Wind, Denmark, and he's going to be speaking to us of maximizing whole system solutions. Joel, over to you. The floor is yours. You've got 5 minutes, please, because we're really pushed for time at this point.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll do my best to run through my presentation in 5 minutes. Yes, it's a pleasure to be here. To all the audience, and thanks for the invite to this session. So yes, I'll be talking about maximizing whole system solutions and trying to bring that to the context of Nigerian Energy Forum. So we can go to the next slide. The next slide actually shows a typical, you can say, a typical week in the power system, and I chose Germany because I live in Germany right now, and Germany is one of the countries in Europe that has progressed very far with renewable energy integration. So a lot of solar, a lot of wind, together with all kinds of energy generation, as you can see in the charts. What you see here is basically, and several speakers have talked about it, where you have variable renewable energy driving supply during certain times of the day, which is the yellow one for solar. And you can see that really matches demand, which is the black line. However, being renewable, then it's intermittent, which means that you don't have solar at night. Likewise, you have periods when you have high wind, like during the middle of this week, and this is from last week. So during the middle of the week, it was very windy, and you have the green bits where you have a lot of wind energy. But at the beginning of the week, there was no wind, and you had more fossil fuel, nuclear, gas. What's interesting right now is that even a country like Germany that is very advanced with a lot of renewable penetration, the way the grid is being balanced right now, at least the majority of the case, is via interconnection. And the chart on the right-hand side just shows what happens. So whenever demand is actually greater than supply, then basically Germany imports energy, which is the top side. And you can see mainly we import energy from France, because France has a lot of nuclear, and then sometimes we import energy from Denmark and from Switzerland. And then when Germany produces too much energy, which you see towards the end of the week where you have so much solar, then you can see that at the bottom side, Germany is exporting energy and exporting energy to other countries, so like Poland, like Czech Republic, Switzerland, and so on and so forth. So it goes to show that the transition to renewable energy is quite complex, and thinking about the system flexibility and stability is going to be very crucial. Next slide, please. So my kind of key takeaways basically is like, how can we maximize the whole system solution? And I have 3 areas, and I think these 3 areas are also very relevant to the Nigerian context. One is demand response. So if you take solar is a kind of energy generation that doesn't require any mechanical components. So there's no turbine that turns. So you lack this inertia in the system, which causes issues with frequency management and responding to changes in demand. So most energy markets will have to start thinking about inertial services to respond to frequency changes. We talked about energy storage in the first presentation, which was very, very good. So I'll skip that a bit, but this is basically looking at the whole suite of energy storages. So hydrogen, battery, hydro, and so on and so forth. And then also voltage control. And this is basically incentivizing more reactive power to actually absorb some of those excess energy when there is low demand. And then you have demand management in countries like Europe. In countries in Europe, then this is actually quite important, because you can actually drive and tailor demand, like Yahid was showing with moving hydrogen, shifting energy to the night, you can also perhaps shift demand. So like with lots of electric cars in Europe, you can actually push people to charge their cars at night when demand is typically low, or you can also push for energy efficiency in homes and offices. And then the final one is basically system innovation. And I think this is where maybe concepts like what Salva Energy is doing really comes into play, because you have the trend towards more decentralization, rooftop solar, off-grid solutions, and basically being able to connect all these stops when needed to the central grid using digital technologies like virtual power plants and all kinds of dispatching and curtailment services to be able to balance the whole demand supply in the grid. Last slide. So basically my journey, I studied engineering in Federal University of Agriculture in Abeokuta, and during that period I did several internships in the university, but also on agriculture, water management, car design, and I was fortunate to do my master's in Bristol University in the UK, where I studied advanced mechanical engineering, and got into the renewable sector via interest in drivetrain and transmission design, and joined Vestas whilst doing my engineering doctorate as a reliability engineer for drivetrains on wind turbines. So ever since I've been in Vestas, since 2012, and I've had several roles in asset management, data analytics, and right now I'm working as a product manager, looking at how to commercialize certain types of services in the power markets. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Excellent, Joe. Thank you very much. Just 1 minute over time. I'm sure that Daniel and Engineer Makinde will have a present for you for that. Thank you. So we have our final speaker. But before I introduce her, just to give you a recap so far, speaking through to our theme, we have people, innovation. So we've had conversations from Jadid and also from Joel now, just innovation in terms of hydrogen, wind. We have someone, who's like, taking the bull by the horns, which is speaking about Sandra, coming home and going against the grain to say, what, there's a problem in this country and I'm going to solve it. And then, of course, we've also talked about, one of the biggest aspects of it all, which is human capacity development. Nothing is going to move forward unless we get that right. And that was coming from EBNA. So now we're going to take our final speaker. I'm excited and proud to also say that she's an AllOn investee, as her company is, not Omobola personally. Energy is an AllOn investee, and I'm introducing the CCO of Energy, Omobola Omofaye, and she's going to be talking to us in 5 minutes about boosting solar mini grids. So over to you, Omobola, and yes, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Jadisola, for that beautiful introduction. And I would like to say a big thank you to the organizers of this forum and also to the sponsors. And I also bring you greetings from the CEO of Energy and the entire management staff of Energy. And once again, my name is Omobola Omofaye. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for Energy, and I'll just go right into the presentation for today. Nigeria is a country that has a huge population of about 200 million plus, and also we have a very high energy demand. If you look at the charts that I have up here, the current national peak demand is about 25,000 megawatts, and what we currently generate is about 6,800 megawatts, and what is distributed is about 3,008 megawatts, which shows that there is a deficit and there's a gap. And that gap has left about 80 million plus people without access to grid electricity. And if you look at the chart again here, you can see that in terms of the distribution, about just about 55% of the urban population have access to the grid, and in the rural space, about 36%. And it shows that a lot of socioeconomic activities in these spaces will be impacted. And for some that do not even have access to the grid at all, they might be left in energy exclusion or energy poverty. Next slide, please. So for the people that are excluded, or for people that are experiencing energy poverty, this is what it looks like. You can see the connection here for most of the small SME here. The businesses that are being powered by diesel generator. You can see that the way the connection looks, it's not so tidy, and it can cause any explosion and cause a major damage, and even health hazard to business operators. And again, the amount they spend on keeping up with diesel and running these businesses is quite huge. And so for people in education, or for people in rural areas that do not have access to the grid or electricity, this is what some of the kids or children they experience. They do not have proper environment to study. And again, this is some of the challenges that we have identified in our environment as energy, and that is the problem we are solving. The next slide, please. Energy is actually solving one of the major problems we're experiencing in Nigeria, and that's bridging the energy gap that we currently experience as a nation. And the journey of energy so far, in the past 8 years that energy has been existing, we've been able to install about 3 megawatt capacity of solar systems and about 9 megawatt hour of storage. And just a brief about energy. Energy designs manufacturers that offer commoditized solar systems with lithium-ion solution batteries in Africa. And our major vision here is to ensure that we are able to resolve energy reliability issues around emerging markets. And our target market is the impact sectors majorly, which is education, healthcare, hospitality, telecommunication, and a few others, as you can see just here on my screen. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So just to show you what the solution looks like, the solution is actually modular, and all the components are boxed. The only thing you have external is the solar panels. They are pretty sophisticated, and this is what it looks like. We have 3 kVA, 5 kVA, 10 kVA. Because these systems are modular, you can actually scale them to achieve any load requirements that we have for homes or for businesses. And this solution is also mini grid ready. Next slide, please. So for all the customers that we onboard, all the customers have access to the solar-based monitoring solution. So that means from the comfort of your home or from your mobile phones on the Android or the iOS, you have the ability to monitor what you're consuming. And also you have the ability to do some controls around it just for you to be able to optimize energy management. Next slide, please. So in terms of support, we are there to support you on the journey once you get onboarded, whether you have an issue on the routine maintenance. Next slide, please.
So by the extra time now.
Okay, so these are some of the strategic partnerships we fostered so far. Next slide, please. And a few more, but we just limited it to this. So talking around boosting the mini grid, some key factors to note is the technology. We need to ensure that the products that are used for this sort of project are quality products, and also in terms of economics to ensure that the levelized cost of electricity that is offered is very competitive, and local content can also come into play here to actually improve it, and also consider the anchor tenants, which are the commercial off-takers, and which can also boost the viability of such projects. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are some of the key areas or factors to consider for people looking into coming into the energy space as energy leaders. So you can just read it right on my screen. You might want to be an upstream player, downstream players, or you might also want to be in the funding space. But the most important thing is that you need to be able to identify the market segment where you want to play, and you have the right technology to be sure that you can have the right application for the customers and ensure that they have reliability and sustainability for you to be able to scale your businesses or your project. Next slide, please. So we can just keep that to the next. These are just some of the case studies that we've deployed so far. Next. Yeah, so this is a pharmacy. The first one was a laboratory. This is around education. Next slide, please. This is a hostel. Adama Hostel is a school that will power end-to-end with upgrade solar solution. Next slide, please. And this is another school here in Lagos. Next slide, please. All right, so in a nutshell, this is what my career journey looks like. I started in the ICT sector, spent about 8 years in the service, sales, delivery, commercial functions across sub-Saharan Africa before I transitioned to energy power management and renewable sector. And I've been here for a bit now, worked with several OEMs in the energy sector. And I've also been very actively involved in technical sales solutions, strategy commercialization of generation and distribution of energy solution equipment. I'm a graduate of electrical engineering with a master's from Manchester Business School and also a fellow of the Institute of Management Consultant Nigeria, currently the Chief Commercial Officer for Energy, where I drive strategy for growth, commercial activities with focus on accelerating access to clean, reliable, and sustainable energy for all. Next slide, please. Next slide, and that's the final slide. Thank you. I'm happy to take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Omobola. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience. Thank you for being here with us. I see the numbers keep growing. Participants, we're very excited about that. Like I mentioned, we're meant to have one final speaker, but unfortunately could not make it to join us today. So that means that hopefully we should be rounding up within the time allotted to this panel. We have a number of questions on Slido. Please keep your questions coming. I'm going to start with the ladies first. There's a question here for Sulfur Energy, and I'm going to just, where is it real quick? Okay, so the question is, this is for you, Sandra. So if you answer it in a minute, what would you say has been or is still the most significant challenge you've experienced on this journey? So in 1 minute, and luckily, thank you to whoever sent that question, because it was one of my questions for you, so you've escaped that one for me. So what's been your most significant challenge since you started the journey, Sandra? Sandra, you're muted. Hi, Sandra there? Okay, so I don't know if
I was muted. Yeah, I was muted before. Okay, so the biggest challenge for me, I mean, I see from 2 points of views, internal and external challenges. The internal one was breaking away from what I knew was energy, being oil and gas, and then transitioning to a cleaner form of energy, which is solar. And so for me, that was a challenge. It was like, you know, moving out of my comfort zone, but I just had to do what I had to do because I wanted to evoke this change that I hadn't seen, you know, in my environment. So that was the internal challenge, and I got over that. The next challenge was then designing the products to fit the market. Because I failed initially by trying to bring what was already existing and, you know, plugging it in. I saw this happening in Kenya and Ethiopia, and it was working. I wanted to bring this in, and it wasn't working. So I had to sit down, design the products across the value chain, and, you know, get it to fit the markets, targeting those customer segments. And I think after that, it's financing as well. Financing is also a key issue, but that is also, you know, being resolved as we see more players in the space.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sandra. So I'm going to go to Omobola next. Jadid, I'm going to come to you after that. Omobola, in 1 minute, your question is, what is the source of the statistics on access to grid electricity with the rural-urban split. I would like to dig deeper into the statistics. So if in a minute you can just give us that source, that would be excellent.
Okay, that's Power Africa fact sheet for 2020. Hello?
All right, thank you very much. So the person asking the question, yeah, we can hear you. Thank you very much. We heard you. So the person asking the question, you can just go onto Power Africa page, and I'm sure this information will be there for you to dig into deeper. Okay, so the next question will go to JD. Are there safety risks associated with the use and storage of hydrogen renewable energy? And there's one other question for you, JD. So if you take that in like 30 seconds, then we can take the other question.
Sure. Yeah, certainly. While hydrogen produces no CO2 emissions at the point of use, it has different physical and chemical properties to natural gas. One of them is the higher diffusivity. So it moves a lot faster than natural gas. And so it presents challenges, especially when it comes to leakages, and as it can easily escape through the tiniest of gaps, which would otherwise be sufficient to seal natural gas. Importantly, it has wider flammability limits, which increases the risks of explosions. However, it's worth stating that hydrogen is not a new fuel. There's already a hydrogen industry in place, and the systems are already there. The infrastructure is there to deal with these issues. So yes, there are challenges, but they are challenges that can be overcome.
Excellent. Okay, and I think the second question is, what are the main constraints to implementing the hydrogen energy option?
I think that's a very good question. I think by far today, the biggest constraint is actually bringing down the cost of green hydrogen. So today, the most common method of producing hydrogen today is using steam methane reforming of natural gas. However, that is very carbon intensive. So, and it's inconsistent with climate change goals. So because to produce 1 ton of hydrogen produces 10 tons of CO2. So that is definitely not a sustainable solution. Currently, production of green hydrogen is actually over 3 times more expensive than producing it using traditional methods. So the main constraint is actually bringing down that cost through investments, through research and development. And once the economy of scale is developed, then that the cost will be at parity with traditional methods. And then I suppose one of the main constraints will be eliminated.
Thank you very much, Jadid. There's a question here for Joe, which is actually very similar to the question that I had for him. And but I'm going to read the question that the person posed. And I think that question is, what is the role for onshore and offshore wind energy in Nigeria and Africa? And my question to you that, initially was going to be, what's Vestas Africa strategy, if you have one on the whole wind thing? So I think you can take the two questions in one fell swoop. 1 minute. Thank you.
Yeah. We do have an Africa strategy. I mean, we have gigawatts of installed base in Africa, combined South Africa, Morocco, Kenya, Ethiopia, and recently Senegal. So there is a role in the long term. The challenges we face, basically, if you take Kenya as an example, is basically the high voltage transmission lines, because wind, where you look at these wind farms, sometimes could be remote, and then it's enabling that infrastructure to then connect this to the grids, because unlike solar, it's not very feasible to have wind as an off-grid solution. So yes, there is a strategy, but it's very dependent on the ability to connect these to the grid. Yeah.
Thank you very much. There's another question for energy for Omobola, but before that, I'm going to ask Ibiene. There's a question here that says, which innovative approaches work better for capacity building in the energy sector?
Okay, thank you very much. So when you say innovative way works better, you think it should actually be technology, but not necessarily in all aspects, right? So innovation is doing something slightly different. So I think maybe the innovative way I would say is looking at each particular learning intervention you want to do, and actually customizing the right one that would suit that particular. So we're all aware of learning mix, where you would say 10% in class, a lot more time on the job, and also working with technology and collaboration. So that's where I would probably say a lot of innovation can come in. You need to customize the particular learning solution you would use for that particular skill. It's not necessarily always a one size fits all, but I can't say there's one specific answer. And I would not say technology in all cases, because some people are not yet embracing technology. So if you want that knowledge transfer to come in, it may not always be technology.
Absolutely, I hear you and I agree. Actually, thank you. So because of time, we've literally just hit the 1:45 mark, but I'm going to take the last two questions here. I'm sure the next panel will permit us. And I'm very excited. I'm very thankful to the panel today for just making sure that we worked with the very short timing that the NIPP gave us, but we made it work. So to Adeji, can startup companies that want to migrate to mini-grid development partner with your company? And if yes, what are the requirements? But that's 30 seconds for you to answer that, Omobola.
Yes, so the answer is yes. We can partner and support you as a technology partner if you're a mini-grid developer. And you can drop us an email on corporatesales@anergy.com and we can take it forward from there.
Excellent. Thank you, Omobola. Now, the other question is from AD Rufai, and it says, Dear team, my question, must a foreign company, gas, concede some percentage of its equity before being allowed to invest in Nigeria? And I guess this question is under the whole local context. So I don't know if anybody on the panel wants to tackle that. Again, 30 seconds and we can round up. Does anybody want to take that?
I believe that will be actually addressed in the next panel. So that's a good transition question, actually.
Yeah, that's what exactly that's what I was going to say, that this looks more like the question that the Minister of State on Power can answer. So on that note, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm very excited to have moderated this panel. I hope I did it justice. Thank you very, very much to the panelists, to Jadid, to Sandra, to Joel, to the BNA, to Omobola, and to Jumoke, who could not join us. Thank you all very much. And to the NEF team, thank you once again for giving us this opportunity. It's been a pleasure, and we hope that we can do this again soon. Thank you, and God bless.
Wow. Jarisola, honestly, I must confess to you, you deserve an international award for the excellent performance here today. This is very, very lovely, I must confess to you. So humorously delivered, so perfectly delivered. Thank you so very much. We appreciate you so very much. And of course, very timely as well, very time conscious. We appreciate you.
Thank you. You as the panelists, they all help. Thank you all very much.
That's good. That's good. Now, the Honorable Minister of State is very much in the house. Before I welcome him, of course, with that, we are moving to the next session, the high-level plenary session, which is going to be on COP16. Before we move to that, we want to welcome the Honorable Minister of State for Power. But before I do that, let me just very quickly recognize and welcome some of our people here in the house, some of the delegates in these Nigeria Energy Forum e-sessions. Of course, we have in our midst Engineer Professor Adisabilu, FNSF, Fellow Academy of Engineering. We appreciate you, Prof. You are welcome. Engineer Mrs. Linda Bitros, Abuja NIEEE. We appreciate you as well. Engineer Mr. Funlayo Kadri, FNSC, you are very much welcome. Engineer Peter Chibu, FNIEEE, thank you so very much. My best, yeah, good to see you again. Engineer Charles Akintola, the Engineer Bimbola Ogumbi, Abuja Electric Distribution Company, we appreciate you so very much. And so many others in here, we just appreciate your coming and we celebrate you. Now, without much ado, we are going to the next session. I want to believe somebody is getting enlightened, somebody is, really enjoying himself. I am, if you ask me. And of course, we are moving to the next session right now. And right away, we are having the presenters, the panelists, they are very much in the house. Please permit me to, I welcome him last and then I welcome him, to take the floor. Of course, we're having our Mr. Jenny Rogan. She's going to be speaking on maximizing global energy perspective at COP16. She is from UK COP16 Regional Ambassador for Africa. Of course, we also have Mr. Wale Shonibare, Director, Energy, Finance and Policy, African Development Bank. Is going to be talking to us about financing, of course, presenting a 7 minutes slide, financing Africa's energy transition to net zero. Of course, we also have Colin Drizin, Director, Economic Growth and Environment, USAID Nigeria. He's going to be talking about boosting the US-Nigeria COP16 energy cooperation. We also have, of course, in our midst, Jim Paul Adam, Director, Technology and Climate Change, United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. Is going to be talking about accelerating African energy priorities. Of course, we also have in our midst Ahmad Zakari, a good friend of the house. He was here with us the other time. Is the special advisor to the president of Nigeria on infrastructure. Ahmad is going to be talking about, he's also going to be the session chair. We are anchoring this together. And of course, it's going to be taking on, allowing to have some comments, based on some of the presenters' presentation, some of the slides that will be coming up shortly. So without much ado, gentlemen and ladies, I want to welcome into our midst a friend of the house, somebody that out of his very, very busy schedule, he has taken time. We tested microphone and video a long time ago, and is still very much here with us, Honorable Minister of State for Power in Nigeria. And of course, 2021 NEF Chief Host, Mr. Godijedi Agba, is going to be speaking to us on advancing Nigeria energy priorities at COP16. Honorable Minister, you are very much welcome. We are delighted to have you in the house. The floor is yours now, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished speakers, colleagues, and guests. It is my pleasure to speak with you today and give you the opening key note remarks around the theme of maximizing Nigerian energy prospects at COP26 to highlight key opportunities and recommendations for a just, equitable, and sustainable energy transition. I want to begin by thanking the organizers of this annual forum for recognizing the need to engage on this issue of a just and equitable transition in this critical year of the energy and climate agenda. I also want to thank the UK government and their representatives for their COP26 leadership and support for Nigeria through the process of Energy Transition Council led by the co-president designate AllOn Shema and SRG Damilora Ogunbiyi. As I stated earlier, this year is a critical year for the energy and climate agenda. For the first time in 40 years, the UN Secretary General will convene a high-level dialogue on energy at the UN General Assembly in September. This convening has given the global energy sector an opportunity to take a step back and assess where we are in order to accelerate progress towards achieving Sustainable Development Goal 7, which calls for universal access to clean, reliable, and affordable energy for all by the year 2030. This convening, as things stand, we are off track to achieving the SG7 target of 759 million people globally still lack electricity access, and 2.6 billion people still lack access to clean cooking solutions. Unfortunately, Nigeria has the highest electricity efficiency globally, with 90 million people unelectrified, while 175 million people still lack access to clean cooking solutions. These are huge figures that must be addressed because energy access underpins economic development and enables other human capital potentials such as access to adequate healthcare services, quality education, and economic productivity. At this same time, the global climate agenda is picking up speed in the race to meet targets set forward in the Paris Agreement. In November this year, the global audience will converge in Glasgow at COP26 to negotiate the path towards keeping the rise in mean global temperature to well below 2 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels. The energy sector will be a critical sector for focus for these climate negotiations, as energy production and consumption, including electricity, heating, and transport, accounts for 70% of global greenhouse gases elimination. As we engage in these negotiations in the run-up to COP26 and beyond, it is critical that we work towards aligning on an energy transition outcome, which is equitable, inclusive, and just. This means accounting for adverse realities and accommodating various pathways to meet net zero by 2050. In the case of Nigeria, a just and equitable transition will be one that patronizes addressing our energy access challenges and look to enable universal residential and industrial access to clean and sustainable energy. A just transition in Nigeria will feature the use of both clean energy technologies and natural gas in the transition pathway, as we aim to achieve universal access to energy by 2030 and net zero emissions by 2050. Naturally, gas has a key role to play in improving grid flexibility for renewables to improve electrification rates and addressing clean cooking gases challenges. The Nigerian government has developed its energy transition plan through support for the UK government's COP26 Energy Transition Council process, which has shown that a mass electrification of sectors of the economy is required at an unprecedented scale for a developing nation in order to meet the net zero target of 2050. Figures show that this will require investments of over $400 billion in excess of business as usual spending between now and 2050, highlighting the scale of effort required. This plan also highlights the critical role natural gas can play by helping increase grid stability, which will allow for the integration of renewable energy technologies at all scales. On renewable and clean energy technologies, last year, the Nigerian government committed to electrifying 25 million homes and businesses to empower 25 million people by 2023, using solar energy technologies like solar home systems and mini grids. All of these efforts demonstrate that the clean energy transition in Nigeria has already begun. A successful outcome of Nigeria in COP26 process will now be to negotiate and secure offers of implementation support in the form of climate smart energy finance and multitask stakeholder partnership for technical support where required. Financing is most critical, as several reports have shown that there is a huge gap between annual investment required to meet this SDG7 and net zero target by 2030 and 2050 respectively, and the actual investment we are seeing being deployed into the energy sector each year. Unless these huge finance gaps are closed, there will be no just and equitable transition. Therefore, Nigeria and other developing nations will fall further behind in their stages of economic and human capital development. Let me wrap up by reiterating that a successful negotiation of Nigeria at COP26 will be one that secures financial support for the implementation of the government's clean energy priorities, including the 5 million solar Niger program and the broad energy transition plan. I hope that through the dialogue today, we shall reflect on how we can contribute to achieving this outcome. It has been my pleasure sharing these remarks with you today, and I look forward to hearing the outcomes of this forum. I thank you very much for listening.
Wow. Thank you so very much, Honorable Minister of State for Power, Mr. Godijeriagwa. That was another very direct, concise, precise, and straightforward one. Just like I told us, he's a friend of the house, is very much here with us on so many occasions now. We appreciate you. He has been able to tell us quite a number of things there. But for want of time, while the Honorable Minister is still very much here with us, I want to bring to the microphone right now Janet Rogan, that's the UK COP26 Regional Ambassador for Africa. She's going to be speaking to us, presenting on maximizing global energy perspectives at COP16, COP26. Janet, you're welcome. Over to you.
Adekunle, thank you very much. Honourable Minister, fellow panelists, invited guests, good afternoon. And I'm very happy to be here with you today, actually beaming in from your neighbour, just across the border in Niger. Really looking at a global effort here when it comes to our subject today, powering a sustainable industrial revolution. And I just want to pick up on the point that the Honourable Minister made at the end of his intervention there about financing for all of these issues and for climate action. We have, as the UK, 4 goals for COP26. Of course, we have the mitigation goal and adaptation and resilience, which are the big things, especially for this continent of Africa and especially for the vulnerable nations. But accessing finance is one of the biggest challenges that we are seeing everywhere. And we have heard, as presidency, very many messages about the complications of accessing finance. And I have to tell you that one of our big objectives is to be able to collectively find ways to simplify and lighten the burden of trying to access climate finance, whether it is through the global fundings or indeed through support for private sector activities through PPPs and such like. So one of our 4 and I'm sure the Minister and the colleagues from the Nigerian delegation will be very much in support of that work. Let me just turn to the issue of our topic today, which is powering a sustainable industrial revolution. Of course, a just transition to clean power is essential if we are to have a sustainable industrial revolution, not only for the developed world, but most particularly for the developing world. A just transition is vital to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement for avoiding dangerous climate change and limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees C since the end of the pre-industrial era. Although I think in this continent, we may already be nearing warming of 1.5 degrees that people are seeing and experiencing already. This transition offers huge opportunities, of course, for jobs and growth, for cleaner air, improved public health, and can also and should also boost access to energy for the wider population. It should also promote energy efficiency and provide energy security. I think this transition is already underway. Renewables made up more than 70% of global power capacity additions in 2019, but we must all move more quickly. According to the International Energy Agency and the International Renewable Energy Agency, the global transition to clean power needs to progress 4 to 6 times faster than it is at the moment if we are to achieve our goals. So the UK presidency of COP26 is enhancing our collaboration in the energy sector by bringing countries, development banks, investors, and civil society together to strengthen the clean power investment and assistance offer so that clean power is the most attractive option of new power generation for any country. It will do the world no good at all if the developed world stops using old fossil fuel technology and we find that the developing world has no choice but to continue with that old technology. Through the COP26 Energy Transition Campaign, we are firstly growing the coalition of countries, subnational governments and businesses, phasing out existing unabated coal power, building on the Powering Past Coal Alliance. We're also strengthening the international offer of sustainable finance and assistance for clean power so that it is the most attractive option for new power generation. We are establishing a new financial framework to accelerate the just transition from coal in major coal economies. And we are driving ambition on product energy efficiency standards by doubling the efficiency of 4 key products sold globally by 2030. When it comes to our engagement with Nigeria and Nigeria's engagement in climate action, I must say I look forward to close continued collaboration on energy with Nigeria ahead of COP26. We recognize that Nigeria has one of the greatest energy access challenges in the world, with an estimated over 85 million people not having access to modern energy services in 2018, and an overall access rate of only 57%. In addition, we know that there are some key challenges facing the scale-up of renewable energy, with solar representing less than 1% of the country's energy mix in 2018. Nigeria's power sector therefore faces two major interlinked challenges, which are the financial viability of the sector and technical issues with the grid and distribution. The UK has been working to support the government on tackling these challenges and ensuring electricity access for Nigerians. Particularly, the UK's Nigeria Infrastructure Advisory Facility has provided support for Nigeria's power sector infrastructure through strengthening the regulatory environment, supporting the transmission company with new procedures, support to the bulk purchaser, and work on metering, as well as support to the Rural Electrification Agency for off-grid solar mini-grids. In addition, through the Africa Clean Energy Technical Assistance Facility, the UK is working with the federal government on the Solar Home Systems project under its Economic Sustainability Plan through the Rural Electrification Agency, and is offering support at subnational level to establish solar electrification policies. Other programs through which the UK is providing support to clean electrification in Nigeria include Partnering for Accelerated Climate Transitions, Modern Energy Cooking Services Programme, Renewable Energy Performance Platform, and the Clean Energy Innovation Facility. The UK is also really trying to support more broadly with trade and investment. The UK's Development Finance Institute, the CDC, has investment funds and is, for example, ready to support a solar on-grid project in northern Nigeria, even though that's been stalled for many years now because of a variety of security conditions. We have seen UK companies active in Nigeria, including MCOPA, Bbox, PAS, Solar, working with solar home systems, mini-grid companies such as Grommer and Microgen Renewables and Connexa, working on clean energy access on the grid through new models. And there are smart metering companies such as Steamaco, providing solutions which reduce energy theft, as well as allowing consumers control over their energy use. So ahead of COP26, we're also working closely with Nigeria through the Energy Transition Council. The Energy Transition Council, as was mentioned by the Honourable Minister, is chaired by COP26 President Alok Sharma and the UNSG Special Representative for Sustainable Energy, Damilola Ogunbiyi. And the main aims of the Electricity Transition Council are to improve the international offer of support for clean power to developing countries, to ensure that it is the most attractive option for new power generation, and to enable coal-intensive economies to equitably transition from coal. Nigeria is one of our ETC focus countries and has held a two-part national dialogue focusing on-grid and off-grid challenges respectively, hosted by the Honourable Minister, in addition to an energy efficiency and metering workshop. Now, development partners are now considering where the gaps in support are on these agendas and to bring forward a collective offer to respond to these priorities. And this will be developed in the run-up to COP26 to tackle the core set of issues where the ETC can provide added value. In addition, there is a fast-acting technical assistance platform through the ETC called the Rapid Response Facility, which is grant-based and demand-led, with the aim of boosting clean power options in key countries, including Nigeria, in the run-up to COP26. And it's supporting the development of Nigeria's energy transition plan ahead of COP26 to assist in the achievement of net zero by 2050.
Janet, I'm afraid we're running out of time.
We're running out of time.
Yes,
yeah,
maybe
let me just wrap
more.
up then.
Yeah,
let me wrap up. So basically, as we work to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, decisions made today will be critical to lay the foundation for sustainable and inclusive growth. We need to ensure that we set ourselves in all developing and developed countries on a route that takes this just transition towards sustainable energy. We need to transition away from the fossil fuels, and we need to really assist developing countries to ensure that their use of renewables with the intensive capital costs that are there as you go in can be brought together to support them to access finance and bring forward the technical transition to clean power. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Janet. That was another good one from the UK COP26 Regional Ambassador for Africa. Now, what we're going to do is this. I'll be handing over to the co-handcuff for this particular session, Zachary Ahmed, SC to President on Infrastructure. But that is going to be after we take Mr. Wale Shonibare. Zachary, I want to believe he's going to have some things to say, or probably queries or comments regarding COP26, regarding the presentation from Janet, the Honorable Minister, and of course, what Mr. Wale Shonibare is going to be sharing with us very shortly. So without much ado, I hand over the platform right now to the Director, Energy Finance and Policy, African Development Bank, Mr. Wale Shonibare. Is going to be speaking to us on financing Africa's energy transition to net zero. Mr. Shonibare, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Honorable Minister, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for this invitation to the African Development Bank to participate in this session on the Nigeria Energy Forum. My presentation today will focus on Africa's energy transition to net zero and its financing requirements. I will also highlight some of the bank's initiatives in this area. If we move to the next slide, the need for accelerated efforts to power the continent is greater than ever before, as more than 2/3 of the world's population that are without access to electricity live in Africa. Although this number has stabilized over the past few years, it increased by about 2% in 2020 due to the impact of the pandemic on the implementation of electrification projects. Africa's expected demographic trend will worsen this situation, as 57% of the expected increase in the global population between today and 2040 will be in Africa. The 5 countries with the largest access deficit, representing 50% of Africa's deficits, are Nigeria, the DRC, Ethiopia, Tanzania, and Uganda. If we move on to the next slide, to reach universal access by 2030 requires a 5-fold increase in the power sector investment. Can you go back to the previous slide, please? Mostly in low carbon generation and grid networks. Indeed, there's an urgent need for Africa to expand its energy infrastructure to serve its growing population. However, despite being home to 17% of the world's population, Africa only accounts for 4% of global power supply investment, which makes it rank amongst the lowest in the world. Achieving universal access by 2030 requires a significant ramp up in spending to over $100 billion a year, with 51 billion for transmission and distribution lines, 34 billion for grid generation, and 17 billion for off-grid systems. The prospects for Africa's power supply investments will be stronger if regional endowments are considered, as the lowest electricity generation mix varies across the regions of the continent. This will shape different energy transition pathways between these regions. For instance, North Africa relies heavily on gas. This region has already reached universal access and needs to focus on decarbonizing its power system with solar and wind energy, whilst exploring opportunities offered by green hydrogen exports to Europe, for instance. Similarly, South Africa relies mostly on coal, has almost achieved universal access to electricity, but suffers from severe load shedding with an increasing pressure to decarbonize its power system. On the other hand, West Africa, Central Africa, and East Africa have an acute access deficit and need to significantly increase their power production while seizing the opportunity to harness solar, hydro, geothermal, and gas resources via least cost solutions. Africa's contribution towards greenhouse gas emissions has been marginal and accounts for only 3% of cumulative global emissions since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century. Besides, Africa contributes to only a third of energy contributes to only a third of Africa's emissions, of which 75% comes from North Africa and South Africa combined. The fact that forestry and land use change emit more in Africa than the energy sector contrasts with the global picture where energy sector represents more than 2/3 of greenhouse gas emissions. Nonetheless, structural transformations are projected to drive the continent's energy emissions growth over the next decades with profound demographic changes that are set to accelerate Africa's economic growth and infrastructure development. With the rapid growth in the continent's energy consumption, gas and renewables are expected to dominate the energy mix. This will require appropriate policies to support a strong expansion of green energy, whilst also placing emphasis on energy efficiency improvements. Indeed, Africa could become the first continent to achieve a significant level of industrialization, with cleaner energy sources playing prominent roles with much lower emissions to deliver economic growth compared to other economies. For this to happen, Africa must mobilize its fair share of funds and acquire. It is well known that Africa is one of the regions with the highest vulnerability to the effects of climate change. Its ecosystems already suffer disproportionately, and future impacts are expected to be substantial. This will have implications for food security, migration, and ultimately development. All African countries are signatories to the Paris Agreement. However, climate finance flows remain far below the continent's investment needs. On average, Africa receives only $19 billion in climate finance per year, mostly for mitigation mechanisms. This is 5 times lower than North America and well below Africa's investment needs, which are estimated to range between 26 to 41 billion USD per year for adaptation alone. The private sector is expected to play a more active role in Africa if we are to raise the significant volumes of financing required to meet mitigation and adaptation requirements. Thanks to technological improvements and resource endowments, Africa can pursue a much less carbon-intensive model of development than what has been seen in other parts of the world. To follow this pathway, African countries need to overcome several challenges, including how to effectively increase the share of renewables as a proportion of the total energy mix, how to avoid load balancing challenges for a grid system that does not have reliable base load, how to further deploy decentralized systems in remote areas, promoting productive use to ensure bankable demand, how to accelerate access to clean cooking. The choices that lead to net zero pathway will vary, reflecting the different resource endowments and starting points across a very diverse African energy landscape. The African Development Bank has been at the core of Africa's power sector development for over half a century. We have a portfolio of close to $20 billion on energy investments. We are committed to providing holistic support to our regional members in their energy transitions whilst accelerating electrification efforts. To do this, we rely on a suite of financial and policy-based products, which include lending and credit enhancement products, special funds to provide bespoke solutions for private and public investments. For example, we have our Green Baseload Program under the Sustainable Energy for Africa, which provides concessional finance and technical assistance to support the penetration and scale up of renewable energy, capacity building with our Africa NDC Hub and Clean Dev Special Fund. We have special initiatives such as our Desert to Power program that aims to create the world's largest solar zone across across the Sahel, across 11 countries, by delivering access to electricity for about 250 million people. So in conclusion,
thank you, sir. Okay, conclusion, good.
I'm just concluding.
Yeah,
Africa
thank you so much.
is growing at an accelerated pace. So is energy demand on the continent. But the world cannot afford for Africa to follow the same development pathway as has already been followed by developed countries. We must cap global temperature increases at 1.5% by 2050, as prescribed by the Paris Agreement. And in line with the polluter pays principle, the developed world has a duty to support Africa in achieving a successful energy transition. We are at a turning point in human history, and future generations will hold us accountable for our actions or inactions. We must not let them down. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you so very much, Mr. Wale Shonibare from Africa Development Bank. We appreciate that very concise presentation. We want to have something like a kind of a little interlude now before I hand over to Zachary. And what we're going to do is probably we'll take, there are quite a number of questions on Slido, but there's a particular one for Janet. I'm sure quite a number of us will be rearing, to go for the Honorable Minister and the other presenter. Now, there's a question for Janet here. Very simple. Say, will the UK government continue to support the development of natural gas in Africa? Maybe you want to unmute yourself, Janet, and let's hear you. Yes, go ahead, madam.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the UK government has been clear, and we announced with the G7 and with the other G7 parties that we would no longer finance coal projects, amongst other fossil fuels in particular, and move away from fossil fuel support. When it comes to gas, natural gas, and evidently a lot of countries in Africa have good gas reserves, the UK government will consider projects on a case-by-case basis, along with, as will others, and regard it as a transitional measure. So insofar as you have the exploitation of gas being part of a transition with a plan towards a renewable energy, then those are the projects that could be looked at on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, thank you so very much, Janet. I think that does it. Now, let me hand over to Mr. Zachary Ahmed, SA2 President on Infrastructure, for his own questions, and probably want to moderate by taking some of the questions. There are quite a number of questions on the Slido for the Honorable Minister. Probably might even want to take some of the questions by himself, or probably want to raise his own questions, and of course, other presenters. Zachary? Yeah, we can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself first, Mr. Zachary Ahmed. You are still muted? Okay,
can
good.
You guys hear
good.
me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Go ahead, please.
Oh, okay, great. Good afternoon. And very happy to join this very important dialogue. Engineer Makinde has been doing a good job of piloting thus far. Thank you also to Dr. Daniel for all the work in getting this session set up. It's very important when you have such a high-powered team of speakers, at least to work to distill the output and seek to bring together the themes. I think the Honorable Minister, who is very much our leader in country here in Nigeria on driving the discussion around the energy transition plan, as well as the COP26 targets, really spoke about the large gaps and how Nigeria, due to our numbers, is at the core of solving these problems across Africa and making a dent in the global challenges as well. I think he talked about renewable penetration, but with a view to ensuring that gas is carried along and allows for a stable transition for African countries. And I appreciate the comments from the ambassador on how the UK is thinking about it. You know, we also had from the Honorable Minister a reiteration of the Nigerian government's commitment on off-grid solar with the 25 million connections program under Solar Power Niger. So we seek to have 5 million solar connections, rather impacting 25 million people. I'd say when the ambassador came in, she spoke about very clearly the importance of the partnership between the UK and Nigeria, the studies, the support, particularly from UK NIAF that we receive, as well as ensuring that financing has to be at the core of these solutions that we're looking at for our energy transition globally. And then lastly, my good friend, Wale, the Director for Energy, Finance and Policy from the AFDB, really spoke about how Africa is at the tip of the spear in terms of solving these challenges for us. I was pretty taken aback by the number that only 4% of global power supply investment is coming into Africa, while we have the largest energy gap. That we look to AFDB to help us mitigate the continued gap from increasing and hopefully reverse that trend. And I think there was a lot of clarity in terms of how the AFDB director segmented the challenges in North Africa versus South Africa versus Eastern and Western Central. And I think that's a good way to think about solutions, grouping them and seeking who needs decarbonization versus who actually needs access. So I'd say the themes are, as these very important speakers went through, this concept of our energy mix is important. We have to have the support of the global community to continue to leverage gas that we have in abundance and help us with that gas to transition into more penetration on renewables. So that mix is very important. And Ambassador, you honored us and joined us today. We would like for you to help push that discussion in the global community. I mean, I hope when you say that it's a case-by-case basis, it's going to be on very specific criteria and objective, so that it doesn't now seem as if case-by-case means very infrequently will we get support for gas. I think particularly in Nigeria, we're very committed to the renewable cause. We're able to do that very quickly, as you see with off-grid, where we fully transitioned our rural electrification agency to, people jokingly call it the renewable energy agency now, because most rural electrification is renewable based. But at the same time, we're seeking to rectify the significant challenges fiscally on our on-grid sector, and then begin to bring in more wind and solar projects as we balance out our gas base load. I think the second theme on financing, and I'd link it to the third theme on speed and a sense of urgency. We don't have time. When the, I like to say, if there's a baby conceived in Africa, in 9 months without any delay, that baby plus or minus 2 weeks likely will be born. And we don't have time to say something we can do today, we're gonna wait till tomorrow. So the constant bickering and the delays and the negotiations at times that has killed many projects. You can see with 4% of global finance actors, that's not going to work for Africa. We desperately need continued leadership with the AFDB to accelerate funding access, as well as serve as a conduit for global financial flows to help us meet our energy gap while doing it in a sustainable manner. So, Engineer Makinde, those were my, key points, I'd say, and very excited to be here today, and grateful for the Honorable Minister, Janet, as well as Wale for honoring the event. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so very much, Mr. Zachary Ahmed. That was a very nice. Maybe I should very quickly allow Janet and Janet to and Mr. Wale to probably rehearse, probably 35 seconds each, probably to respond to Mr. Zachary Ahmed's comments. Janet first, maybe.
Yes, thank you. And I think those are exactly the points, Ahmed, that go into those kind of discussions and decisions. That to make an energy transition, it's not just about the source of energy that you're producing. It's also about how you get it into the grid, the capacity of the grid, how you maintain the base load, and we have that issue sometimes with renewable energy, depending how you're bringing it on, of intermittence. And so the way those elements are all phased together in your transition plan is really where you can see the transitional use of gas, for example, as having a role. But it's got to lead in the direction of a renewable outcome. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Shonibare.
Just to react very quickly, I think it's very important to understand the transitional role that gas has to play. And there was a discussion about hydrogen earlier on. The good thing, and you can talk to the GEs of this world, is that a lot of the equipment for gas can actually be used for hydrogen. So you just need to retrofit some of and the likes of GE are already piloting this. So this idea that you will have stranded assets if you develop your gas assets need to be looked at, because as we move along that transition, the investments that we make in gas can also be retrofitted to allow us to transition to hydrogen. So I think it's very important to make that point, and Africa needs to industrialize and will not do it on intermittent renewable energy. So you need that base load to allow you to anchor more renewables. I think that's in order to have this just transition. I'll stop there.
Oh, thank you. There's a need to anchor more renewables. Thank you, Mr. Wale Shonibare. Thank you, Janet, as well. Please, let's keep the questions coming on Slido. I can see quite a number of them there. Let's keep them coming. I think with that interlude, we go to the second part of this particular session, this high-level plenary session. And with this, I want to cede the floor right now to the Director of Economic Growth and Environment, USAID Nigeria, Mr. Colin Dresden. He's going to be speaking to us, presenting on boosting the US-Nigeria COP26 energy cooperation. Colin, over to you.
Thank you. Honorable Minister of State for Power, esteemed panelists, distinguished audience members, good afternoon. I'm excited to join you today to briefly discuss the ways in which Power Africa is propelling the clean energy transition and supporting partnerships between the United States and Nigeria. Coordinated by the United States Agency for International Development, Power Africa is a US government-led partnership that harnesses the collective resources of over 170 public and private sector partners as it seeks to double access to electricity in sub-Saharan Africa. Our goal for the continent is to add at least 30,000 megawatts of new electricity generation and 60 million connections by 2030. In Nigeria alone, Power Africa hopes to enable 10,000 megawatts of electricity generation and add 3 million new connections by 2023. To date, Power Africa has established more than 1.8 million new on and off-grid connections, We've leveraged over $980 million for new energy projects, and we've added over 1 gigawatt of generation. A key strength of Power Africa is its vast network of partnerships. These collaborations bridge the gap between partner governments, the private sector, development partners, and the US government to spur increased investment in Africa's energy sector, reduce barriers to investment, and deliver reliable electricity access throughout sub-Saharan Africa. In Nigeria, Power Africa also supports comprehensive power sector reform. We work to strengthen the business environment for energy projects and to increase private investments. These efforts improve Nigeria's access to affordable and reliable power. Now, as we look forward to this year's UN Climate Change Conference of the Parties, known as COP26, and help Nigeria prepare to submit its updated nationally determined contribution, extraordinary new opportunities exist to not only support Nigeria to reduce emissions, but also to leverage partnerships to implement off-grid clean energy solutions across the country. Through COP26, the global community has a tremendous opportunity to better understand how to support developing countries in meeting their climate and development goals. Over the past year, the United States has renewed its commitment to climate action with an emphasis on creating economic growth through clean energy technologies and infrastructure. In Nigeria, we're pleased to see a similar commitment and the successes of our partnerships have had in advancing the off-grid energy sector. For example, Power Africa support has buoyed the design and implementation of the Solar Power Niger program, which will provide electricity access to 5 million new households and create 250,000 new jobs. Of the more than 100 off-grid companies Power Africa supports, 15% are US-based, expanding the US-Nigeria nexus for collaboration in the sector. Growing our networks, especially through American firms, will help us collectively fast-track new off-grid energy solutions for Nigeria that take advantage of the country's enormous renewable energy potential. I want to thank you all again for the opportunity to be part of this distinguished panel. I hope it will generate innovative ideas for expanding partnerships with our Nigerian counterparts and finding new opportunities to strengthen US-Nigeria relations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so very much. Sorry, I hope I'm audible.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Thank you so very much, Colin. That was a very short and precise one from Director of Economic Growth and Environment, USAID Nigeria. And I believe from the presentation from Colin, I believe there is going to be some reaction from some of us. So please let's just keep the questions coming. Let's push them to Slido. www.slido.com. You don't forget to use hashtag NIPP 2021 to connect with this this particular platform. Without much ado, we're going to be moving to the last presenter in this high-level plenary session on COP26. Is none else than the Director of Technology and Climate Change, United Nations UN Economic Commission for Africa, Mr. Jim Paul Adam. He's going to be speaking to us on accelerating African energy priorities. Mr. Adams, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Honorable Minister, and all panelists and participants. It's a great pleasure to be joining you on behalf of Dr. Vera Songwe, the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, and bringing our perspectives on how we can support and accelerate the implementation of ambitious energy investment strategies across the continent. So my name is Jean-Paul Adam, and I'm the Director of Technology, Climate Change, and Natural Resources. So first of all, why is Africa not on track to meet the SDG 7 targets? Firstly, there's limited electricity supply, and that is coupled with insufficient generation. And therefore, we need to deal with both those levels of investment. And this leads to low electricity access And I think we've already heard about the 600 million people who have no access to electricity, while an even larger number, 900 million, have no access to clean cooking. And in particular, there are 24 countries that have an access to electricity rate of below 50%. And we have some countries that are listed there that unfortunately, due to various challenges, have actually seen reversals in their electricity access. And Nigeria is among the countries, obviously with the largest populations, along with the DRC and Ethiopia, that have the biggest access deficits. But one of the key themes that we'll be looking at is that with that deficit comes also an opportunity, a huge opportunity, particularly in the context of responding to COVID-19 and also building climate resilience to create new jobs and opportunities for economic growth, which are decoupled from carbon-intensive generation activities. We can move to the next slide, please. So we are seeing that there is one of the keys to unlock energy investment across the continent is, of course, to empower the private sector to be able to invest in electricity generation, transmission, and distribution. This is growing in the continent, but is still dramatically insufficient. And I think we heard from previous presentations from the African Development Bank, one of the key issues is the availability of access to finance. Most independent power producers' capacity has been added very recently, since 2011. And this reflects a policy shift in the power sector reforms towards electricity generation. There are growing investments, but it's still very small compared to the global average. And there is still also a particular gap in terms of the investment in transmission and distribution, even as generation has increased. We're also seeing that sorry, if we can just stay on the previous slide for a few more seconds. We're also seeing that the independent power producers and investments from Chinese funds, which are either state-backed or private sector, are the fastest growing sources of power investments. And again, this is based on the fact that if we look at the Chinese funding, for example, it is quite often concessional. And African countries, when having to borrow on the open market, are typically spending in excess of 10% of 10% in terms of the interest rate. And even even the best performing African economies will still be paying 5 to 6 times more than equivalent countries, for example, in the OECD world. We can move to the next slide. The challenge in Africa is, as we've already seen before, because there are so many countries that have below 50% access to electricity, is the issue of base generation. And I think we've already heard today how natural gas will be a key to the transition, because it will be part of increasing the base generation in Africa. And in particular, it is important for the pairing in terms of upscaling renewables across the continent to deal with the issue of intermittency. There are promising emerging technologies around hydrogen, and we heard some of that earlier today. But certainly in the context of the very low energy base in Africa, gas will play a key role. And you will see in the graph on the right that the pairings of gas with other emerging renewables is the way in which we can actually bring in the most renewables online by 2050. Another key element that I would just like to highlight in this slide is that there is a perception that Africa's current generation, which is what you will see in the pie chart on the left, is majority fossil fuels. And we will note, of course, that it is in fact hydro. And this is also one of the issues around intermittency, because we've seen in examples, for example, in Southern Africa, where the productivity of economies has been dramatically affected as climate change has become more prevalent. And this has impacted the reliability of hydropower. We must continue to invest in hydropower as part of the solution, but work to address the issue of intermittency by pairing with natural gas and other energy sources. We can move on to the next slide. The ECA is supporting this move towards investing more in renewable energies through its SDG 7 initiative with 3 main pillars. And that's of sustainability, meaning looking at facilitating investment in energy that provides the best return in relation to sustainability linked to the Paris Agreement goals. Also in terms of governance, and that involves looking at the regulatory sector around renewables, around facilitating investments through independent power producers, and also looking at responsible taxation and transparency around the sector. And finally, also around finance and about crowding in particular, private sector finance using bond issued in the capital markets, and looking at the challenge of risk mitigation instruments, which could be in the form of partial guarantees in some instances. But we're also looking and supporting the development of, for example, a repurchasing market in Africa, which over time can compress the interest rate on African issued sovereign bonds. And this is particularly in the context that interest rates globally are very low, while Africa continues to play. Expect that we can realistically and reliably mobilize additional finance to be invested in these sectors. Next slide, please. Next slide. Now, as I mentioned at the start of the presentation, the investment in renewables, sorry, one too many, back one. The investment in renewables across the continent is an ideal opportunity for also locally based investors within Africa. And one of the areas that the ECA is supporting is around a concept called Team Energy Africa, which is to bring investors, already existing investors in the energy sector, and potential future investors, whether it be pension funds or other partners, to invest in renewables in Africa. To be able to get the maximum impact from renewables, we need to front load the investment in these sectors. And there is already, contrary to popular belief, there is already a strong pipeline of announced renewable transactions in Africa with over 39,000 megawatts already in the pipeline. There needs to be more work done to structure new projects, but the big issue, and I think this has been flagged before, is the availability of affordable finance to make sure that these projects can go ahead as quickly as possible. Next slide, please. The key message that we want to underline in the ECA is that the investment in renewable energy and bringing forward investments in these sectors is particularly important for building livelihoods and creating sustainable value chains. Investing in energy then creates more multiplier effects throughout the economy, opportunities for gross value addition, and adding the opportunities for small and medium enterprises. What we have seen in studies that we have done in 4 countries so far, but we will be doing up to 10 countries, is that the impact of green investments, which is built on a platform of sustainable energy, produces a much higher return in terms of jobs created and value addition, as opposed to traditional fossil fuel-based spending. We see that in Kenya, you get over 200% return in terms of the gross value addition, as opposed to traditional fossil fuel-based sectors, while you have 120% return in terms of the jobs created. In Egypt, it is 150% return in terms of gross value added impact, while it's a 55% return in terms of the green jobs impact. In the DRC, you have a 280% return in terms of gross value addition, while you have 130% return in terms of the jobs created. And in the Republic of South Africa, we actually had the largest return, where you had over 420% return in terms of value addition and 250% return in terms of the green jobs impact. Next slide, please. We are now moving to the final point, which is the policy recommendations. Firstly, the importance of an enabling environment for crowding in the private sector for investments in the electricity sector. Secondly, ensure that there is baseload capacity in the countries, and we're looking at natural gas as the facilitator of that baseload generation. As hydrogen emerges, we expect that to be very important as well. Thirdly, the importance of de-risking investments across Africa, partial guarantees, blending, but also looking at, for example, the establishment of a repurchasing market in the continent. Thirdly, strengthening the availability of data pooling systems, such as through non-state organizations, electricity generating agencies, and regulatory institutions, which can allow informed investments to take place. And also the establishment of incentives to allow the increase of the share of renewable energy and power systems. And that includes through feed-in tariffs, auctions, and bidding, self-generation, debt equity ratios, and also energy targets. And also a simple element is as well moving subsidies away from fossil fuel sectors into renewable sectors. So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to share some of these ideas and also for being part of this extremely stimulating discussion. Thank you, and back to you, Chair.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Jim Adam. Just right on time, I was about interjecting that your time is actually up. So thanks for that very wonderful presentation again. I think that has enlightened quite a number of us, the more some new things. He has highlighted on some of the problems identified and proposed a few solutions. But then without taking much of our time, I understand Janet wants to run, she has some other commitments. But while we keep our questions coming on Slido, I guess probably maybe some of the panelists might just want to very briefly interact with Janet before she leaves. Mr. Shonibare and probably Ahmad, you want to bring out your video, you want to bring the questions forward now, so that we'll probably afterwards we can allow Janet to run. She has some other commitments. Mr. Ahmed, Zachary?
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think that's in a very, very insightful session. And I think we're very keen across this panel discussion before we go on to the questions in Slido, just so I think reflect on those common themes around the need for a just transition. And I think thanks, Janet, for those early insights. And I think thanks to Wale and also to Colin and Jean-Paul around, this all being underpinned by a clear route to project finance. I think across, this sort of interactive session before we open it up to the audience there, I'll be very, very keen, I think, to sort of have us hear from Janet really across her view around some of the various leadership activities across the rest of the region that you have been leading on. Consciously speaking to us from Niger today, and I'm sure you've also been very close to all of the other sort of energy priorities across the African countries, where you see, COP26 creating opportunities for strategic partnerships, obviously across, different economies and African economies. We're very keen to hear your view on how you've seen that firsthand and how, the conference in November can truly be a watershed moment, I think, for all the key economies across the globe to address this global sustainable energy challenges head on. Janet, please, and then we'll come back to Colin and Wale and then Jean-Paul.
Yes, and I'm very happy to give some thoughts from across the region, because I think I'm now in Niger, which is the 9th country I've been in just under 6 weeks. So there's been a lot of up-to-date engagement with counterparts across governments and with the private sector and with civil society as well, and reaching out to populations. And I think this question of the just transition and access to energy is absolutely essential. And we talk about climate change as if it's just a thing out there that we have to worry about. Actually, it's everyday lives on this continent, and daily activities, daily economic activities, education, all of these things have been affected already by environmental and climate changes. So when we start thinking about sustainable development, social and economic development, industrialization and an industrial revolution, a green industrial revolution on this continent, we have got to think about energy. When we talk about build back better in the Northern Hemisphere, maybe in the developed countries, it means something different when we're in the developing world. We actually have to be building better, not just build back better. So we need to be making sure that this transition, when it connects across to development priorities, social and economic development priorities, is mainstreamed, and that the greening is integrated, so that when it comes to financial questions, and whether they're from support from private investors or whether it's through public investment of whatever kind, that we can see the connections across a strategic program. And that has been a very strong message that I have received and also given from the perspective of the UK as the presidency of COP26 incoming, but also as a major partner across the region. So we need to make sure that we've got that kind of integration. When we talk about energy, that we understand it has to be a long-term perspective. An energy transition doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's very, very important, I think, that we do not fall into the trap of having the Northern Hemisphere, the developed countries, shall we say, moving away from the old technologies, and then the developing world having no choices but to follow up on those old technologies. So we really have to make sure that the renewable energy technologies, which are becoming so commercially available and so commercially possible now at a smaller level and also at a large scale, are out there. But that's not just about, as I said before, it's not just about the production of energy, it's also about the transmission, it's about grids, and it's about everything else. So I think it's really important, and I've had that message across the region, across Western Africa, as I've been visiting so far, that underneath it all, to promote the economic activities, we have got to have this right. It's going to be a huge topic at COP26. Along with the accessibility of finance, the effectiveness of finance, and how we can make sure that the right legislative environment and regulations, as well as the right mix of activities when it comes to developing the energy networks is in place. And that's a mixture as well. We recognize there are very, very huge countries that we're talking about, some areas with very sparse populations where off-grid solutions are more appropriate than the on-grid. Whichever way it is, the technology is moving, and these transitions have got to be planned for and supported. So we are with you on that front. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Jane. Just, I think in 30 seconds, Wally, how do you think closing this financial gap, what will you think will be the top priorities in terms of actions really to help bridge this huge gap for financing energy infrastructure on the continent?
I think there are things on both sides. I think governments have to work together with their private sectors, with the private sector interests, and of course there are partners who are also helping on that, to bring about this kind of strategic approach that I talked about. No investor, public or private, is going to work with a very short-term approach when it comes to this. It's got to be comprehensive. It's got to be integrated. It also has to take security into account. So in those places where we have security and stabilization issues, we really need to take that into account too. And then from the perspective of the, if you like, the donor activities, the climate finance that's made available, that needs also to become more accessible. We've seen that the processes for that are very heavy. It's very difficult to access, and that's a big part of our agenda for COP26, that together we may be able to find ways of improving those processes for accessing the finance.
Yeah, thanks, Janet. I think Wally, and then I'll come to Colin next.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that isn't talked about a lot is what we need to do as a continent in Africa. We really need to come together and build regional interconnections. One of the earlier presentations was showing us what happens in Germany. During certain periods, Germany is able to import base load from France, which is nuclear energy, in order to balance its grid. You have some large renewable opportunities in Africa, such as Inga, that can produce 54,000 megawatts of electricity, but DRC cannot afford that project on its own. So we have to build regional interconnections. You have large geothermal resources in East Africa, in Kenya and Ethiopia. Again, quite expensive to develop. But if you're going to spend that money developing those projects, you have to be able to interconnect the different countries so that you can get the best energy mix at the least cost. I think we need to think that way rather than each country trying to do its own little projects. Thank you.
Absolutely agree with you there. And I think Janet would agree with me, interconnection are a key part of, the energy solution, even within the UK, increasing interconnection capacity to the grids of other countries around Europe. And yes, absolutely agree that should be opportunities too for African economies to consider to optimize, access to those large banks or pools of renewable sources across the region. Colin, quickly, just from your perspective, how do you see sort of practical implications across, the US, Nigeria, US, Africa collaboration, helping to drive home this transition really to net zero power system?
Yeah, so first thing I want to say, I wanted to echo, what Wale was speaking about and the importance of interconnectivity. The best batteries in the world, you're looking at 20% losses, yet you can go with high tension power lines halfway around the world. Once you, with intermittent power supplies, once you get greater geographic distribution, that's just simply a huge benefit. As far as, looking at making this change as we move towards net zero, as we move towards increased renewables, one of the things I wanted to mention is, you often get critics and skeptics, trying to play it as a choice between the environment or, sustainable development and, clean energy. And it's completely a false choice, because there's so many economic opportunities. And as we're seeing more and more, renewables are at parity or cheaper than a lot of the older technologies. For USAID, when we look at where we're engaged, I think I talked a little bit about what Power Africa was doing already. I think it's important to highlight all the work we've had with the Rural Energy Association, or as somebody earlier said, the Renewable Energy Association. We've had a lot of success with our support there. I think our work, tied to Solar Nigeria and the strategy formulation is going to be important going forward. And fundamentally, the solution to this is, we talk about the huge financing gap. It comes down to getting the private sector more and more involved. I mean, yes, as donors, we're going to be there. We're going to be doing what we can. But if you just look at the disparity and how much money we have to bring to the table versus the power of the private sector, it's just absolutely essential that we continue to bring in more private sector capital to drive the advancement of clean energy across the region. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Colin. I think Janet has just provided some great insights there around this intercontinental sort of, energy trading approaches. And I'm sure, Jean-Paul will want to provide some insights into that across the relevance of intercontinental energy trading. And from there, hand over the effort to Ahmed. Jean-Paul.
Thanks so much. Unfortunately, my line, I think there's a problem with my side, just cut just before you hand it over to me. But let me make a few points, and then you can just come back to me if I've not got the question correctly. I think the first element we need to look at is recognizing that how critical energy is as a sort of a structural facilitator for economic development. If you have no energy, you can't develop your SME sector. If you have no energy, you can't develop the agricultural sector. So many of the other elements, energy is a prerequisite. We can't go in terms of the digital sector unless we've got energy as that base. So it really is the first step to be taken in terms of infrastructure. And we must also recognize the huge differences that exist across the continent. There are, and even within countries, because you have urban areas quite often in countries that it's quite easy to get investors to invest in energy, but you have rural areas where it's a little bit harder. The importance of front-loading that investment, making sure that that investment happens quickly because of the multiplier effects that it has later on. And that has to be a mix in Africa of support in terms of grants for areas where really you don't necessarily have a business case to make. Then you also need to de-risk the investment from the private sector. And I would fully agree that the majority of funds is going to come from the private sector. And already in terms of climate finance, even before COVID-19, 56% of climate finance was actually coming from the private sector. And Africa needs to be able to channel that money into those core investments in energy to make the most of it. And the key elements of that is to make that finance accessible and affordable, because currently it's Africa is paying a premium, and that is one of the restrictions that is allowing, that is preventing investment to happen. So Chair, please let me know if there's an element in your question that I've not covered.
Brilliant. I think you've covered the key points. There was just touching on Jeanette's insight around the importance of intercontinental energy trading and how, you know, a free trade agreement can help facilitate that across the region. And I believe that's one of the core principles that, you know, UNECA has in leading from the front on. So thanks very much for that. I think
I'll just quickly add then that we're also doing supporting countries in their regulatory frameworks, and that includes aligning some of the core principles through the African Continental Free Trade Area, and also trying to make sure that through the AFCFTA there are actually targets around, we're not there yet, but the ideal would be through the AFCFTA that African countries can also commit to targets, firstly in terms of access to energy, but secondly that energy is also renewable and sustainable. Thanks.
Thanks, Jean-Paul. Take the effort over to Ahmed, and then we'll come back to Engineer Makinde, who will be helping us moderate the questions and answers on slide. But Ahmed, I think very keen to get, you know, the government's, you know, policy perspectives across all of these, you know, grand opportunities that we've sort of, you know, been reflecting on, both across on the road to Glasgow COP26 conference, but more importantly also on the road to, you know, expanding, you know, the Nigerian, if you like, energy supply industry capabilities to deliver sustainable power really to the businesses, to the everyday, you know, people who you know require that to thrive. Ahmed, I think we'll probably give you some 30 seconds there to have a quick go.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. What I'd say is, and I'd like to thank Colin on behalf of the Nigerian government for the support on solar power in Nigeria. That team has been quite instrumental to the work that we're doing, both at the presidency and at the Rural Electrification Agency. The concept of speed and financing have to somehow come better together. There's significant challenges. I think that number on 4% is quite scary given our energy gap. And I think that having more support and teamwork on de-risking, I like what Wale talked about in terms of the energy pools and the blended rates of you know, being able to use some countries that have more gas versus some that have more renewable technology. I think it's something we need to work to make a reality. And you know, Jean-Paul's comment on gas is the way to bring on the most renewables, I think is very critical. What we're advocating for is for all of our partners to make sure that as we seek to decarbonize and de-emphasize fossil fuels, let us not be punitive on gas. While we appreciate this concept of ensuring that it's done in a path to transitioning, we still need gas as base load. We'll do a lot more hydro and then a lot more renewables, but the Nigerian government's committed to working with all of our partners to gain the right support for the global objectives, given this is really a global program and has to be a team sport. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Ahmed. Engineer Makinde, I know there are some very, very, very insightful questions waiting to be addressed on Slido. So I'd pass the effort to you to kindly help moderate those Q&As from the audience to our distinguished panelists.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Daniel. There are quite a number of questions there for the panelists. I wouldn't know whether the Honorable Minister of State for Power is still very much with us. Otherwise, I will just direct the questions for him to Mr. Zachary Ahmed. The very first question here to the Honorable Minister, I guess probably now for Mr. Zachary Ahmed, is that he says, what are your efforts? Of course, what Mr. Awoloye is a respondent here. He said, what are your efforts towards encouraging young researchers in the area of innovative energy? Probably I'll allow Mr. Zachary to tackle that first. I want to believe there's a whole lot in that regard.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Okay, the question goes thus. Say, what are your efforts, that is the government efforts, towards encouraging young researchers in the area of innovative energy?
Okay. I would say that, one of the big things about research and development is funding. President Buhari personally has taken the lead on repositioning NASENI. NASENI is the Nigerian Agency for Science and Engineering Innovation. And NASENI actually has an allocation from tax receipts that for a number of years they were not being able to access. So we're trying to leverage NASENI to improve funding for research in renewables, as well as partner with universities to increase that fund flow. But obviously, our thoughts on innovation are twofold: innovation in technology, but also innovation in business model design. And that's why the work that we're doing on Solar Power Naija, or restructuring the power sector, is really looking at how the business model can be innovated to de-risk and ensure we get funding in. And that also ties into the work that we're doing with the AFDB and World Bank on Power Pool across West Africa. So the repositioning of NASENI for us is very important, and Mr. President is driving that quite aggressively.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Zachary. Before we come back to you, let me quickly go to Mr. Wale Shonibare of African Development Bank. The question here for you, sir, is this. Say, what are the plans in place by the AFDB to support? Okay, don't scroll. Let me just go to my own slide. Sorry. Okay. So sorry about that. To Mr.
I've got the question.
So, okay. Please just go ahead, sir. Thank you.
What plans are in place by the AFDB to support MSMEs in the solar space in Africa to cater for those who lack access to energy? So what the African Development Bank has done is to create a number of specialist funds. So for instance, we have a fund called the Facility for Energy Inclusion, which is a $500 million fund with two windows. One is to support mini grids and small IPPs, and then the other one is to support solar home systems. The reason we've done that is that typically the AFDB would lend large amounts. We're more of a wholesale bank. It's easier for me to lend you $100 million than for me to lend you $2 million. So as a result, we've created these intermediary funds that can lend small amounts, $2 to $20 million, and they are closer to the customer. So the Facility for Energy Inclusion is managed by a fund manager called Lion's Head. They have an office in Nigeria and in other countries in Africa. We've also created funds like the African Renewable Energy Fund and many other interventions like that, because we've invested in over 50 different funds. In Nigeria, we're an investor in the Nigeria Infrastructure Debt Fund, which is the very first time you're able to get pension funds investing in infrastructure via an entity that is listed on FMDQ. And they can also provide Naira going out to up to 15 years, which the local banks are not able to do. So there are several initiatives to support SMEs. You may be aware that we're supporting the Rural Electrification Agency with the Nigeria Electrification Project. We're putting in $200 million there, but there are a number of various projects that are being taken advantage of by SMEs in setting up mini grids, as well as the energizing education and other incentives that I'm sure Ahmed is familiar with. So yeah, so there are quite a number of plans to support SMEs in the energy sector.
Thank you very much. I want to believe that is very, very helpful to the fellow that asked the question. Please, I'm still imploring us, the questions can still be sent to www.slido.com. Let me now go to Colin. Interestingly, Janet has taken a leave. She pleaded she had another very important engagement, but this question is particularly for both Colin and Janet. Colin, the question goes on. Say, would you share with us your country's specific area of investment interest and the current stage, whether it's on refineries, hydropower, or renewable? Collins.
Yes, so our interventions are across the entire electricity value chain, both on and off grid, and we have a big focus on renewables, though we've worked on gas flaring in the past as well. I think that's probably the short answer to the question, so why don't I stop there and see if there's a follow-up.
Okay. Okay, I think I'm on now. Sorry about that. Okay, I think we'll go back to Mr. Zachary. There's maybe one or two questions again for policymakers talking about the people in government. And this question goes to the Honorable Minister. It says, must a foreign company investing in Nigeria concede parts of its equity to a Nigerian-based company? And if yes, what precisely local context acts provided? What precisely local context acts are provided? I hope you got that, Mr. Zachary Ahmed.
Yes, I did. I mean, okay. Try to ensure that our interventions are not exclusionary, because we need investment from whatever quarters that it can come. There are, rules under the Electricity Power Sector Reform Act of 2005 on local content in the power sector. There's a specific NOJIC Act, the Nigerian Oil and Gas, Act that talks about the local content requirements. But by and large, even if you look at the World Bank and AFDB, Nigeria electrification programs, the subsidies or rebates that make the investments more profitable are open to all manner of investors. So I think even the first one that was launched in Rokota by PowerGen was a foreign company. But there are certain restrictions around accessing the low interest debt, where the majority from CBN on Solar Power Niger, where it has to be a local company or majority local company. And that was because at the time that initiative started, maybe 90% of companies in NEP were foreign. And there was a push to try to get more local participation. But by and large, the major facilities are open for investment, but there are specific requirements as you go lower levels. But the policy direction is not to disincentivize investment wherever it comes from.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for that. I think just a quick question from me to, I think, all of our panelists, and maybe I'll start from Wale and then go to Colin and then Ahmed, and go to Colin, Jean-Paul, and Ahmed. I think it's around this point of the concept of speed. Wale rightly mentioned about building interconnection, and interconnection infrastructure will require a good number of years to deliver. But everyday people require energy today. They require sustainable energy today. And how can we accelerate that pace of delivery of, if you like, both the large scale projects and even the smaller scale projects, to optimize the pace of delivery, really, of energy solutions, affordable energy solutions, to everyday people who need it today. Wale first, and then Colin, Jean-Paul, and Ahmed. Wale.
To be honest with you, the most sustainable long-term solution to funding infrastructure in any country is to mobilize their own resources. We have to improve the savings culture. We have to encourage capital formation in Nigeria. So take a foreign currency denominated loan, you're relying on the savings of others to fund your infrastructure. When you go to India, you fund in rupees. You go to South Africa, you fund in rand. When you go to Nigeria, we should do everything to make sure we can fund in naira. The reason I'm saying that is that if you're expecting foreign banks to fund your infrastructure, you can have somebody sitting in London or the US wanting to do due diligence on a project in the Niger Delta. It's going to take a long time because they're not close enough to the people who live there. They don't have the kind of informal networks. It's much easier if you have somebody sitting in Port Harcourt or in Lagos making that decision. So just trying to illustrate, the due diligence process takes a long time because, you don't want to misallocate the capital, and you have to make sure all the social and environmental impact assessments are in place, et cetera, et cetera. But to give a short answer, we have to mobilize more capital locally, and local people will be better informed to make the best decisions, and it will be quicker. So that's a very short answer.
Thanks very much, Wale, for those insights. Very, very much well received. Colin, please.
Right, so when you're talking about speed of change and investment, obviously, on the on-grid space, we're working across the sector from, working on the cost reflective tariff to improving the discos. And these are all things to improve, existing service. But, when you start talking about how do you make change quickly, and, I think Wale just, mentioned, people using their savings and trying to find energy solutions, you can see right away in Nigeria that there's a willingness to both save and purchase your energy just by listening to all the generators that start hammering every time the power goes out. And this is one of the reasons we've found so much success in the off-grid space. People are more than happy to pay. They're currently paying far more than they'll pay for, a mini grid, and they're going to get reliable service. And so, I think our response generally has been an all of the above. We want to tackle as many different areas as we can. We want to be opportunistic because we want to respond to the scope of the problem, but we also want to make sure that we're helping Nigeria make also the long-term changes necessary to build a more robust power sector, not just the short-term changes that are going to fix the problem for a few. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. Jean-Paul, in 30 seconds, how to accelerate the pace of change?
Firstly, I think that we underestimate the importance of the local regulatory and incentives aspect. That also helps to then deal with the issue about financing, because the issue of, and then again with the issue of financing, you've got, and I think Colin gave some good examples about Nigeria, where in some cases you've got a ready-made market, in other cases you don't. Where there's no ready-made market, the government or another authority needs to be ready to put that investment in. And recognizing that that circle, that virtuous circle that is created will create opportunities for reinvestment. So upfront investment creates multipliers.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Upfront investment, more local mobilization of finance, pointing to keeping all the options on the table and exploring, the quickest routes and also the more enduring routes. Ahmed, your views and insights on how to really, I think, get this pace of change progressing, I think, as rapidly as possible.
I think we need to continue to identify the paths of least bureaucracy to an extent. And that's why the Solar Power Niger program, some people looked at it as a curse, saying that you've been sent to the banks. This is not direct government procurement. But the REA looked at it, and we looked at it and said, this is an opportunity to accelerate private sector investment in the sector. I think the more we can identify solutions, we've been doing some very interesting credit enhancements to allow for banks to quickly fund the private sector, through partnerships with NPC, NDPHC, PEF, and others. And I think what we're continuing to see is the problem needs speed and pace, and we need to be smart about how we crowd in funding, local currency funding, with the right structures and guarantees to ensure that investors are comfortable. But has to be a public-private partnership. Some things the private sector will do, something the public sector will do. But as we said earlier, it's a team sport. We have an 80 million person off-grid gap in terms of unelectrified. Solar Power Niger will cover probably the more well-to-do 25 million that can pay. That still leaves a large number, and that's where government investment comes in. But mixing both, we're quicker and it's more efficient. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so very much, Mr. Zachary Ahmed. You see, I've been privileged to be here this afternoon or today, depending on where you are, for very enriching, very deep contributions and presentations there today. A lot of opportunities out there, a lot of insights, and I want to appreciate everyone that has been part of this particular high-level plenary session. Maybe before we close, before I appreciate everyone here, Janet is no longer here with us physically. Probably maybe your last words, Mr. Shonibare, maybe in just 15 seconds, your last take before we close it for this session. Then, of course, I will afterwards go back to Colin and Jim Paul. Then Mr. Zachary as well. Just 15 seconds, just your last few words. Yeah.
Thank you to the Nigeria Energy Forum for this opportunity. I think to wrap it up, what we're saying here is that there's an emergency. There's energy poverty in Africa. Over 50% of the increase in population now and 2040 is going to be Africans. So it could either work to our advantage with the demographic, the growth in young people, or to our disadvantage. And energy is going to be an essential facilitator to empower our young people and our economies in order to be able to create jobs and stop all those young people trying to migrate to Europe. So I think we have to act now, and it has to be green. So I'll leave you with those thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Very thoughtful on there. We have to act now. The time to act is now. Colin, over to you.
I think I would just come back to a theme that I mentioned a number of times during my brief, opening remarks. It's partnership. Fundamentally, the partnership between the United States government and the Nigerian government, but not just governments working together, but other international organizations, other local organizations, and the private sector. Fundamentally, we're stronger together. I know it's cliche, but at the end of the day, my experience is, we always get the most done when we can get multiple organizations, focusing on their areas of specialty and coming together to achieve something much larger than they would get done on their own. So I feel strongly that the path forward is by collaboration, and I look forward to seeing what we're going to accomplish next. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Mr. Jim Paul?
Thanks very much. I think firstly, it's to recognize that investing in renewable energy in particular is the key to actually creating the kind of sustainable value chains that we want to see in Africa. So when we're talking about net zero in terms of emissions, we are actually also talking about zero hunger, zero poverty. We need to focus that investment around energy because it unlocks all the other elements, and the investment is still an affordable and accessible energy. Thanks.
Thank you so very much. We need to focus more on energy because it unlocks the key to virtually every other thing. Thank you so very much, distinguished gentlemen and lady. Thanks for the presentation. I want to start by appreciating the Honorable Minister of State for Power and, of course, 2021 NEF Chief Host, Mr. Godi Jediagba. Thank you for your very insightful presentation, sir. And of course, Janet Rogan, even though she's not physically here with us again right now, she had to attend to some other present issues. We want to appreciate your presentation as well. Of course, Mr. Wale Shonibare, Director in the AFDB, wonderful presentation, opportunities here and there, told us a lot of what AFDB is also doing. Thank you so very much. Mr. Colin Drizen, thank you so very much, Director, Economic Growth and Economic Growth and Environment, USAID, Nigeria. Thank you so very much. You talked about energy, and of course, Mr. Jim Paul Adam, saying that, look, it's the earlier we unlock that key to energy, the earlier we have access to every other thing. I want to say a very big thank you to every one of us that have been part of it. Of course, Mr. Zachary Ahmed, I want to appreciate you, even student, of course, it's part of government, part of the policymakers, studying so very well for the Honorable Minister of State, a special advisor to Mr. President on infrastructure. Students so very well, and it did a lot of wonderful, insightful presentations to us, even off the cuff, even without really preparing for any slides. I mean, that shows what kind of stuff is made up of. Mr. Zachary Ahmed, we appreciate your being with us here again this time around. I want to say a very big thank you. So, distinguished gentlemen and lady, I want to say thank you. All the delegates in the House, everyone that have, brought forward questions, we want to appreciate everyone, and we say thank you so very much. Of course, we are on the roller coaster to the home stretch, and don't go yet. We're still very much, there are still some very beautiful things that we're going to be sharing with us even before we close. I think I'm just, I want to believe the next session chair will permit me just 3 minutes off the mark. Madam Khadijat, let me hand over the mic. Oh, maybe Dr. Daniel, you want to bring in Dr. Khadijat?
No, you can do the honor, sir.
Oh, thank you so very much. Of course, so the next session we're going to be having will be on energy innovation winners and accessors roundtable. We want to, give us an insight. There's this energy idea competition, that we've been having over the years, and so they want to let us into what is happening behind the scene. Before you will see the winners coming around to say, oh, I've won so $1,000, I've won this, I won that. Before that happens, they want to let us in. So with this, I'll hand over the floor to Dr. Khadijat Josia Adilaja.
I think also just to mention this, that I think this is one of the practical ways of getting solutions very quickly, which is part of what we've discussed in the plenary session. So showing that, you know, the NIPP is also taking practical steps to accelerating the pace of solutions delivery.
And of course, also building up and raising up, you know, people that will provide solutions to the energy needs of the nation and of course the continent. Madam Khadijat, Dr. Khadijat, over to you, please. You need to unmute yourself first. Okay.
Thank you very much, Engineer Makinde. It is a pleasure to be here once again. My name is Khadija Jose Adelaja. I am the head of communications at the Nigeria Energy Forum, and I'm also a renewable energy project manager at Niger Delta Power Holding Company. First of all, I'd like to just give an overview of the Africa Energy Ideas Competition. So please show my slide. Thank you. The energy competition has been running for about 5 years now, and we invite young professionals between the ages of 18 to 35 to propose innovative, bankable, and scalable energy solutions that have been locally developed. In the 5 years that we've been running this competition, we've received about 752 entries from 25 African countries, which is like half of the continent. And we've had top energy experts such as Fatima Ademo, Solar Sisters, Simbo Shojiri, Jadid Beta that just spoke in the first session, and some other top energy experts. They've been ones reviewing our competition, and we've had winners from Nigeria, winners from Uganda, Zambia, people that have been winning funding for their businesses of up to 1 million naira. And we've also kept in touch with those winners because they submit periodic progress updates. So the purpose of this session is to speak directly with these winners and see how their businesses are doing, know what they are doing and where the monies are going into, and also to hear from the assessors, the reviewers, to know how they review these entries and what they look out for. So yes, I will hand over now in order not to waste time to our first speaker. Thank you. So Inemaker is our 2018's winner. His solution has been cold hubs for post-harvest loss reduction. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me, Khadija. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are joining. My name is Nnameki Kekwana, and founder and CEO at Code Hubs. About our work at Code Hubs. Next slide, please. What we are doing is to deploy solar-powered work in cold rooms, and the problem we are solving is food spoilage. The problem of food spoilage due to lack of cold storage at key points along the food supply chain. This challenge affects an estimated 93 million smallholder farmers all across Nigeria, who lose 25% of their annual income, according to a report put together by the Rockefeller Foundation. Next slide, please. So a familiar picture if you are traveling across Nigerian highways, typically pictures of fresh fruit and vegetables like citrus dumped on the roadside. And what Code Hubs is doing is really to design, build, operate, and maintain these 100 produce aggregation centers in outdoor food markets. And what we do really is to deploy robust cold storage at key points along the food supply chain. Next slide, please. Cold rooms to extend the shelf life of food from 2 days to 21 days, having more fresh, nutritious food available for local consumption. And really what we do is to extend the shelf life of food from 2 days to 21 days. The revenue model behind our work is a pay-as-you-store system where farmers, retailers, and wholesalers pay for 1 day storage of 20 kilogram plastic crate of fresh tomato, fresh green beans, ball pepper, just 100 naira for 1 day storage of those produce. And over the past 4 years, we've been able to deploy 54 cold rooms. Last year we were able to store 42,000 tons of food from spoilage. We now have 5,250 customers, created 66 jobs for women by hiring and training them to work as our hub operators and market attendants. And we've saved more than 1 million kilograms of CO2 by exclusively using renewable energy in all our systems. Presently, we are expanding all across the country, deploying close to 100 cold rooms between 2021 and 2022. And in 2018, we received the African Energy Ideas competition. With that funding, we were able to hire a business development consultant who actually helped us put together our standard operating policies and manuals, about 25 of them, procurement policy to finance standard operating policy. Today, we are a team of 68, 14 management members, and the rest of them hub operators. We are supported by a rich experienced board who ranges from energy economists to financial economists and an advisory board, mostly comprising of people with food and refrigeration background. And together we have been supported by a wide range of partners, ranging from impact investors to foundations and also several international organizations. So in a nutshell, that is Code Hubs and the work we are doing. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Naimeka. That was a very concise presentation. I was actually about to stop you there, but thank you very much for taking it so fast. Our next presenter is Mera Best, who is the CEO of a company that does waste to power. He was our winner in 2017. So I'll hand over to Mera Best now. Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much, Khadija. Just to be sure if you can hear me, can you just wave?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me appreciate the leadership of NIPP for inviting me once again to share from our story, I think since 2017. All right, so basically, Niana is a bioenergy company based out of here in Jos, Nigeria. And primarily, we hope to be, actually, we're building ourselves to become the leading player in the waste to energy market in Nigeria. One of the driving force for us to join this, the renewable energy movement is, I mean, throughout the whole conference, a lot of things have been talked about the energy deficit, here in Nigeria and across Africa. But another key areas we're looking at is in the areas where we could do more than just electrifying Nigerians. So first of all, about 75% of the whole of the people on the continent move from one location to another by trekking. And again, there's an 8 times fertilizer demand here across the continent. So these are all massive opportunities for us to be able to move Africans to meet the sustainable development goal requires energy and more. And that's why we believe we are a company beyond electricity. Next slide, please. And the next slide also. So our model starts with the, next slide, please. Our model starts with, our products start with the containerized system. So primarily when we came to NIPP in 2017, we shared an idea that converting waste to energy could be fun, could be clean, and can be efficient. Because hitherto what we have is big turnkey plants that requires tons and tons of waste. But however, African communities are designed and segmented in clusters. So how about we have a system that can, first of all, be designed by Nigerians to be used in not just Nigeria and Africa, for Africans. And so Miana started this whole project, and we were gracious enough to win the NEF 2017. And the judges over there, for us, believe, next slide, please, that we can validate. So we came to NEF to validate our ideas. So what is our transforming impact? So primarily, we're looking at a system that can power homes. It can enhance mobility and close the STEM gender gap. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so basically we built credibility by winning the NEF. The confidence of the team was also boosted, and we were also able to use part of the funds to start a simulation process that attracted angel investment for our companies. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so to wrap things up, this is where Miana is since 2017. What we've been able to do, we've been able to see how we could integrate both solar energy plus the AD system to improve and increase access to energy that can be used productively by rural farmers and people within that particular locations. And recently, we've been able to also attract interest from other partners to be able to build this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Merbes. Thank you, Mayana. So we've seen two ideas from Nigeria, and our next presenter is all the way from Uganda. Brian Kankembo is the CEO of Weye Clean Energy. I hope I pronounced that correctly. They use waste and convert into rice husks and waste to I can't even remember, for cooking. It's basically clean energy, cleaner cooking using rice husks. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Yes, my name is Kakembo Brian, and our company is Way Clean Energy. It's in short, it's in full. Way in full is Waste to Energy Youth Enterprise. And what we do basically is to gather organic waste from different urban areas and rural areas to create charcoal briquettes, which are essentially used for cooking. So we are basically a clean energy enterprise led by youth. We came up as first prize in the 2019 competition for NEF, and we at that time, our idea was still basically wrapped up around institutions. So what we do is we go and liaise with institution owners, schools, universities, prisons. We liaise with them and we bring them proper stove technology. And then in exchange for that stove technology, they sign with us a 3-year contract for us to supply them charcoal briquettes. So essentially we have two products, the briquettes and the stoves work as a way to get customers. And then the briquettes are the product that we generate revenue from. On the other side, we also do training services for youth and women in rural communities to show them how to turn their waste into both biochar that we can use to make briquettes, or essentially go straight ahead and produce the briquettes. And so what we have done is we've trained over 800 women and youth around Uganda. And in these communities, they are generating money from these aspects. And this, we are really grateful to NEF for that competition, because it gave us the credibility among the different players in energy within Africa and even within our country itself. And also gave us the confidence, because it involved a business plan competition where we had to provide our business plan among judges to see how good we are. And so it gave our team the confidence and morale to actually push this through. And then the funding itself, of course, helped us in so many ways. One, in proper registration, because we are not very about the competition, is that it doesn't require you to be fully to be fully registered as a company, and so you can have the funding will help register. So that's one of the most amazing things, and that's how our team has gotten to where we are now. And our plan is we're currently producing up to 80,000 tons per month. And out of the 80,000, we're supplying over 60,000, and we would be supplying all the 80,000 if it wasn't for the interruption from COVID-19. We're just getting back because there was a point where we even fell all the way up to just selling one single ton. So right per month in production, and that is by increasing and also increasing. Essentially, that is where thank you so much, Khadija. I'll take any
Thank you very
questions
much.
after this session.
Thank you very much, Brian. So you've seen our winners from 2016, 2017, and 2019. We pride ourselves in seeing that we've had people that provide clean solutions that make, lives better, they improve lives. And we hope that in this AI Africa Energy Innovation competition, which is holding as well again this year, it is on. We hope that we can receive good entries from anyone who's listening out there that has good clean energy solutions that they would like to share and win some funding for their companies. Also, now we have our reviewers, 2 past reviewers from the competitions that would be sharing their insights on the competition and also letting us know what they look at, what they're looking out for, and what they would call a good entry. So please listen if you want to submit entries in the competition this year. Thank you. So next we have Sele from AllOn, and he will be telling us what he thinks are good entries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Khadija. Please confirm that you can hear me clearly.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just waiting for the first slide. While the first slide is coming up, again, I also want to thank the NEF organizers for this event and for having me in this session. We can go to the first slide. I'll be very quick, just a few slides to go through. So this first slide here just is a snapshot of, at least from my perspective, and I think generally most reviewers, what we would look for in the presentations and the pitches from businesses that are applying. Granted, it's on the assessment day, the pitch is a very short one, so it's very difficult to sort of showcase every single item here as effectively as possible. But the better the businesses do, then obviously, they're the ones that make it, that they're the ones that get selected. I liked very much the 3 presentations just before, because those presentations pretty much showcase some of these things here. First, having a clearly defined problem statement, and this goes beyond just saying, oh, there are 80 or 100 million people in Nigeria without proper access to energy, or 1.4, the majority of 1.4 billion people in Africa do not have good reliable energy. You have to be a little bit more specific about the problem. For instance, food wastage as a result of climate issues, and therefore a cold storage solution. So being able to identify very clearly your problem and making sure that the solution is very well aligned to that problem and is a practical solution as well. Then the next thing that we would look out for is, and by no means is this list exhaustive, business market potential. Can the idea create value, money? Is it profitable? And is there a strong demand for it? Social impact, we want to see to the extent the idea will create jobs, how does it benefit rural communities, women, and other perhaps disenfranchised segments? The level of innovation behind the business, does it help to create efficiencies, reduce cost, improve energy consumption, for instance? Is it reliable? Can it be scaled? And then the strength and quality of the management team. Obviously, people that want to support and back the business always have to buy into the people that are promoting those business ideas. And then I guess pulling it all together really is the quality and the presentation of the pitch, which hopefully will string all these other components together to give you a very effective pitch. From AllOn's perspective, we really value what NEF does through this innovation challenge. It keys into, and you can go to the next slide, please. It keys into what AllOn does as well. And this very, very briefly is a snapshot of our business model, but our business model is hinged on partnerships and is hinged on programs such as the NEF Innovation Challenge, where we also partner with other companies, run similar sorts of programs. And that way we're able to source and identify promising businesses at various stages of their early life cycle. So for instance, today we have 50 ventures across ideation, angel, and growth. And that's why we are proud to be continued partners with NEF and to participate in the Innovation Challenge. Short of time, so we can go to the next slide, please. I was asked to also, I guess for the benefit of aspiring energy professionals, talk through my career journey. I'll admit that I've only been in the energy space coming to 2 years now, but there's been a bit of a path towards that. I studied chemical engineering in the UK and worked with a few multinational organizations, veering away from engineering in consulting and banking, but this gave me a broader perspective of businesses across supporting and providing services to businesses across different sectors. It was with that that I took the decision rather to move back to Nigeria. I've been in Nigeria now almost 8 years. And rather than work for yet another conglomerate or multinational organization, I decided to work with boutique firms and startup and early stage businesses, helping to build them as well. As I went through that journey, you sort of identify the areas of need of the critical mass in Nigeria, from financial inclusion, whether it's finance, to logistics and ways of growing their businesses. And then through all that, I arrived at energy being sort of like the critical common factor that underpins success on an individual basis and a commercial basis. So, and so when the opportunity came to get into the energy sector with AllOn, it was one that I readily took. I've been fortunate, as I mentioned, to work with a team that manages and supports as many as 50 businesses now. The hope is that with partners like NEF, the work that we do will continue to support these businesses to scale, to deliver, and to help to close the energy access gap. Thank you. I want some comments on the side there about motivation, just to make sure that the motivation for working in the energy space is very clear, and that will increase your chances of success. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Sele has said it all. Make sure that your ideas are actually solving a problem and not just saying that you have 40 million or 80 million people in the world that do not have energy access. So if you are interested, please send in your ideas to the Africa Energy Innovation Challenge, and maybe AllOn will be funding you in the future. So please participate, and it will be closing on the 15th of August 2021. I put a link in the chat for anyone that wants more information on the contest. Thank you very much to our moderators and to our participants, to our speakers. And if you have any questions, please send it to Slido and we would read that. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Khadijat, for anchoring and handling that session.
Thank you, sir.
Well. Thank you so very much. And so I guess little by little we're getting to the home stretch. And of course, I guess, Dr. Daniel, do we have some questions on Slido?
Apologies, we do have a question. It says that, may we take off the age limits for this competition, please? Innovation is ageless and should be encouraged at all levels. I should answer that question. We are trying to encourage the young professionals, and yes, innovation is ageless, but we might have to tweak for this year. We'll speak to the chair and other organizers and see if that is something that can be done. And then we'll get back to you as participants of this program. Thank you. Dr. Daniel, do you have anything to say about that?
I was just going to pass the ball to Sele because I would imagine they have some innovation opportunities that they can, make highlight for the benefit of stakeholders.
So, sorry, Daniel, were you saying that as an alternative to the NEF Innovation Challenge?
Absolutely. Maybe some of the other seats of innovation opportunities that do not have any age limits attached to them that are currently being delivered through AllOn, for example.
Absolutely. I mean, our programs and our criteria do not, let me use the word discriminate on age. We're happy to look at all business opportunities or proposals as long as they're in the renewable energy space, whether you're an energy company or a company that's leveraging energy solutions. Daniel, what do we do about our contact information? Is that something that the forum can share, or how
Absolutely. I think if there are any sort of feedbacks or any inquiries, certainly feel free to reach out to us via info@thenep.org, and we'll pass those details across to the relevant teams within AllOn. But yes, we're very keen to support innovation at all levels, and the NEF is only contributing a bit to that, focusing on the younger professionals. But yes, there are a range of other stakeholders who are working as a team to deliver innovation across different age groups as well. So thanks, Sele, for that.
Pleasure.
Okay, Brian seems to be raising his hands.
Yes,
Brian,
please.
Brian, you want to say something?
Yes, I wanted to actually respond to that question too. We've seen time and time again that youth have less opportunities. Young people have less opportunities, and this stems back into the whole, he has just come out of university sometimes, or they're still in university. They don't have a credit history, they don't have financial history. So most of the time they don't have access to credit. And people beyond the youthful age have that chance because most times they have actually worked for a company and there's a salary trace, and so they are credit worthy. So I think the person who asked this question should also understand that this competition is trying to bridge a gap within the youth, and it's not trying to discriminate, but rather to include. So already people above that age have opportunities to actually get access to credit. The people below the youthful age and within the youthful age have less opportunities. And so this competition is designed to include them rather than exclude the upper level.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brian.
So I guess that's hearing it from the horse's mouth, so to say, in quotes. So need we say anymore? I don't think so. We seem not to have new questions on Slido, Dr. Daniel.
I believe maybe just one final one for Code Ops there, just reflecting on whether there are any opportunities for expanding the service, above and beyond, access to probably the retail community around, food, just to maybe other areas of the agri-food sector as well, whether that's something that has been actively considered.
Thank you very much for that question. Yeah. We are looking at expanding technology to, address cold storage needs within other sectors. With support from AllOn, able to demonstrate cold storage for fish. We are actually storing fish at the moment in Akwa Ibom State, and we are diversifying from fish storage into ice block production for the fish sector. We are also doing solar-powered blast freezers for the meat sector. That's also scaling up from solar-powered cold rooms for fresh fruit and vegetables. And we are stepping into food logistics, which is really, really a very new ball game for us. Looking at starting with gas tanks, gas-powered refrigerated trucks across Nigeria, so that we won't change the story of being a very green, sustainable company to being a company that is doing fossil fuels. We cannot be seen doing fossils since we are talking about solar, cold rooms, and remaining a green cooling company. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's very interesting insights going forward. Then maybe one final point for MayorBest. What's the role of bioenergy, going forward? Do you 15 seconds there just to give us a snapshot of the next steps? I know before we call it a close over the coming minute.
Okay, bioenergy has the potential to reach this nexus between energy and agriculture. So when you look at not just Nigerians, but the population of Africans, we are hugely agrarian. So in terms of what we're looking at the moment here in Plateau is to see how bioenergy could drive the peace building between the herders and the farmers. So that's something currently we're also looking at here. So we believe bioenergy beyond electricity can also be used to foster peace.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Oh, wonderful. That's a pretty good one.
Thank you very much to everyone that has participated in this session, to MayorBest, Inaimeka, to Brian, Sele, Engineer Olanio, who was not able to join us due to network. Please participate in the competition. It is still on, and we would really love to hear your ideas. We want to know what solutions, the next and great thing that would help Africa as a continent. So please participate, follow the link, and we would also send you more information after this webinar session. Thank you. Now I'll pass on to Engineer Makinde. Thank you very much.
Dr. Daniel, we seem to have Engineer John Fonsha Adebayo's hand up. I hope the hand is not pinning him yet.
Absolutely. I think we're going to be welcoming a goodwill message as we close from the IEEE Nigeria section share, just to bring us some insights there for 10 seconds, if at all possible. Engineer Funcho, IEEE Nigeria section chair, please.
Thank you very much. I'm very sorry I'm on the streets of Lagos. I bring you good tidings from Nigeria, IEEE Nigeria section. My name is Asset. Basically, I've enjoyed today's event, and this is just a tip of the iceberg to what to expect in November. I say congratulations to NIPP team for having a successful outing today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And yes, Engineer Makinde, I think we can bring it to a close by signaling the upcoming events in November, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I will so much appreciation to IEEE Nigeria section chair there. He has even mentioned the fact that yes, the next event is coming up 30th of November. That's the final session of NIPP for the year 2021. And it's, to me, I think it's been a very rewarding, a very enriching, very enlightening session today here. And once again, we want to appreciate everyone that has been part of this. There are quite a number of delegates. I saw them here while we were opening, and interestingly, they are still here, even up to now. Professor Bello is still very much there. Quite a number of people, Engineer Mrs. Funlayo Kadri is still there. Engineer Linda, so many of them, they are still very much there. We can't mention the names of everyone, but we just, okay, Mr. Olatunde Downs here as well, and so many others. We want to appreciate each and every one of us for being part of all of this today. I want to believe somebody is taking home something good today. I want to believe somebody has been enlightened, seeing some opportunities here and there due to the presentation of, various presenters. So we want to say a very big thank you. And I think it's a good place, good time to say see you on the 30th of November at the final 2021 Nigeria Energy Forum webcast for the year 2021. Dr. Daniel.
Absolutely. I think as we say our goodbyes, many thanks to all of the supporters. We invite everyone, feel free to turn on your videos, wave a quick goodbye as we take, an end of session, a photo shoot. We're keen to capture all the faces of all our stakeholders who have joined us today, for that end of session photo shoot over the next 30 seconds. So, feel free to turn on your cameras and, wear the big smiles and, let's just take the end of session photo shoot for today as we prepare for that next session, on the 30th of November. And as Dr. Khadijat rightly mentions, the call for entries for this year's innovation competition is still open. If you are between the ages of 18 and 35, we've got about 7 days between now and the 15th of August to win up to, $5,000 to support your project, your energy project. So very, very, very much looking forward to receiving all those insightful entries. We'll just be taking the pictures now. So can I check everyone is wearing a big smile?
Yeah.
Big smiles.
Professor Adeaga, you are not smiling. Come on, come on.
Can I check everyone is wearing a big smile? Please turn on your videos.
Thank you so much.
We've got just less than 30 seconds to take the pictures. Yeah. So we take the first one. One.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. First one is in. Yeah. The second picture is just about to be taken, so you can take another pose. Yeah. And then the final one. Great. That's it. Thank you very much, everyone. And we'll certainly be uploading all the slides on the webpage. All of the videos from today's session will be posted on the website. I'll be sending you all links to that and some of the post-impact report. Thank you very much for your support for the Nigeria Energy Forum, and we look forward to welcoming you in November. Till then, keep driving a sustainable industrial revolution driven by renewable energy technologies. And we look forward to engaging more with you, all our stakeholders. Thank you very much, and bye for now. God bless. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. See you in November. 30 heads. God bless. Bye. Dr. Barnabas, thank you. Engineer Femi Jacobs. Everyone, thank you. Thank you, Engineer Didayalo. Thanks and God bless. My prof, Engineer Disabedu. Thanks for being there from beginning to the end, sir, my prof. Yeah, I appreciate it, sir. Well done, well done. Thank you so very much.
Just give everyone an opportunity to unmute their microphones and send in their last goodbyes as well.
Yeah, maybe brief networking, short one. Anyone? Thank you for being there today.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Barnabas.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Engineer.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Emmanuel Kuza, thank you, sir.
Engineer, thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, appreciate
Engineer
it,
Martin, that was a very good one.
Thank you very, very much, sir. My chair, my chair. Engineer Royasta, God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, my chair. Thanks. Mr. Sedestrom, thank you so much. Mr. Arishekola, you are appreciated. Thanks for being there, everyone. Thanks so very much. Thank you, sirs. Matthew Musa, thank you.
Is there 1 minute?
Thank you, sirs and Mars. And
yes.
I think on that
Engineer
note, bring it to a close.
Khadija Joseph Adelaja, good afternoon.
Finally, I'm able to get it.
Yeah, how are you? Yeah.
Bye, thank you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the program. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Martin.
Yeah,
yes,
my regards to your family, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you so very much for being there.
I said my regards to your family.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you very much. My regards to yours as well, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, God bless you.
Bye.
Yeah.
My prof, sir.
Bye.
Thank you so very much, sir.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So
thank you. Bye bye, sir.
Dr. Daniel, I think
you,
it's a
Rian.
good place to call it a day.
Absolutely. I think
that
that has been
I cite you.
Yeah, my chairman, sir, my president. Thank you, sir.
networking session.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
It appears the virtual networking session is over now. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you in the virtual, NEF in November. Thank you. Bye for now.
30th of November. Thank you so very much. Bye.
Very wonderful session.
Yes,
thank you.
Present, sir. Engineer Shobo Olufemi, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
You are appreciated. Well done, sir.